Hey, Dave.
Okay. Hey, I'm trying to set up another computer because I've got a 24-inch screen that I can view anything we screen share. But I got to finish getting Zoom downloaded, and then you may see me signing on again
Okay,
a second time.
no problem. All right, Anna, are you on just the phone part? Maybe. And Pat, are you with us?
Hi,
Yes,
can you
I
hear
am.
me now?
Yep, hi,
I can
Anna.
hear, yep.
Hi, Pat. All right,
Hi.
so it is 7 o'clock. I am going to call us to order. Oh, there you are, Dave, entering twice. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access Channel. It'll also appear on YouTube within a 24 to 48 hours. Since we're all remote, please be careful of what you choose to screen share, because again, this meeting is being recorded. I don't think we are live anywhere, but just in case we are, the Zoom meeting ID is 792-737-0353. And if you're calling in, the toll-free number is 888-475-4499. And you just need to enter that meeting ID. There is no password for this meeting. Okay, so I am calling us to order at 7 o'clock. Let me do a quick roll call of attendance. Dave?
Here,
Anna?
Here.
Pat?
Here,
Great, and obviously I'm here. Chris is at soccer practice. He will be joining us in a little while. Oh, there he is. Hi, Pat. Okay, so the first thing on our agenda is public and board comment. Does anybody have anything? Okay, I have a board comment, but I think I'm going to hold it to the end. All right, so the next thing up is approval of minutes. There's, I believe, 3 sets of minutes in the Google Drive. Let me just verify that. There is January 6th, January 20th, and March 8th. Also just added in the last couple of minutes is an amended Parks January 6th. I'm sure nobody has had time to read it yet, but Dave had read through the minutes and had some suggested changes. So I did add those in there. And I did listen to the video again, and they do clarify what he was saying. So does anybody have any amendments or changes they want to see made on any of those minutes?
To be honest, I haven't had the time to check them. But
Okay.
if we have had people within the board that read them, I will take the board's, those members' feedback and accept them as true.
We did. Dave, did you? I just took your red line items and added them into, I copied and pasted it into that document. Were you able to see the amended version?
yes.
Okay,
So I'm good.
all right, great. And Pat, you weren't with us back then, so you probably are looking at them going, this is all new to me anyways.
I might have been in on the meeting though. I think
Okay.
that was one of the ones I was in on, so.
Okay, so the January 6th and the January 21st, those are the longer ones. The one on March 8th is actually the appointment of Pat. So, and those minutes I actually took mostly from the select board meeting, because why reinvent the wheel? So if that looks good to everybody, I would take a motion to approve those 3 sets of minutes.
I move to approve January 6th minutes as revised, January 20th as presented, March 8th as presented, and that should do it.
To do it. Great, thank you. Could I have a second on that?
Second.
Great, let's do a quick roll call on that. Anna?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
Dave?
Aye.
And it's an aye from myself. So these will be going over to town hall tomorrow. So that should leave just our February minutes. We did get a minute taker. She started, I think, yesterday. So I've reached out to her. I haven't heard back, but hopefully she'll get on the she'll do that. Actually, it's the March minute. She'll do the minutes from 2 weeks ago. And then I'm actually going to finish the February one. So those will be ready for the next meeting. All right, great. I don't see Rob. And I talked to him earlier and he said he was coming. So let's just skip down to the 2022 beach season. Heather, do you want to jump on and join us for this discussion? There she
Hey,
is.
everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us. Much appreciated. All right, so as you're all aware, the beach house has had some demolition done to it to check the safety of the front wall. And then I did a walkthrough and I had raised some concerns. So I had mentioned it to you guys. We wanted to invite Heather to tonight's meeting. I had emailed her, we got a response from her. So the first thing we need to figure out is what we need to do to be able to open the season. Timeline wise, Heather, on any of these repairs, should we be moving forward, assuming that they won't be done in time to use that building?
I would assume so. Yeah.
Okay,
I would just
and-
proceed without thinking that you're going to use the building this season.
okay. And do we know if that front porch is going to be usable to us, or is the entire building off limits?
I think the front porch would be usable. There'll just be the ramp on the roadside that will likely be unusable because that's going to need the access, and that canopy I think is going to need to come off in order to do the repair to the front wall. So
Okay.
I would not assume, any access that way for anybody but the construction crew.
That's a weird, I don't know if you've been down in that building, Heather, but that ramp goes inside the building, but it doesn't lead down to the beach. So no matter what anybody does that was disabled, if they went up that way, they would have to most likely enter the beach from the road anyway. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. I wish that
Yeah,
Rob
and
would.
I have been to the building. Yeah, I did go down after
Okay.
that, and yeah, I'm familiar with it. Yeah, the inside.
Okay. So how do we do this? We would have to bring in portable facilities, restroom facilities. Do we have, how do we go about doing this? How do we fund this? Who is our point contact on this? Who do we have to go to clear where we can put them? Because I think the Board of Health has some policies on, they need to be advised when a portable facility is going in.
So the DPW can handle as far as securing the vendor and for the rental of the facilities. And until we have a new director, I can be the point of contact as far as those decisions.
Okay, give me 1 second. I think this is Rob that just texted me, and I want to, he's asking for the link because none of them that he has are working. So let me send that over to him. Okay, I assume this is Rob. He's not in my contacts, but he would be one that would have my number. Okay. So can you sort of tell us what the steps are in the repairs to this wall, what the financial piece of it is in terms of what Parks needs to be involved in, and what the future maintenance / repairs / getting this in condition so that people can use it safely.
I'll just take a step back though for a moment. It's just a little more history on this project that we're talking about right now. So this came up during the fiscal 23 capital planning process as a project. So it was identified in the plan. Unfortunately, we weren't able to secure a cost estimate in time for the planning process. So that project got pushed out basically. And until we got a cost estimate, we can't include anything. So we didn't know the full scope at that time. So we received the cost estimate the beginning of March. So given that and provided that it was over 20,000, it triggered procurement requirements. So it also does not include electrical. So I contacted an electrician that we've been working with on another town building project. He was able to go out there. That's a very limited scope because actually that electrical box is 100 amp. I guess it's well suited, more than enough amperage for that building, those needs. And the electrical work related to that wall is very limited. So that should be a very small portion of the project. So the other aspect that was raised was asbestos. So I contacted an asbestos survey company. They went out last week. I met them there with a facilities person. They got me a proposal today, which I returned to them, and they'll be probably taking samples next week. And we should have verbal results on that next week, at the end of the week. So we'll know that scope. Given just the extent of the front wall project and the ceiling tiles that will need to be replaced, that whole ceiling, and that if you're facing the beach inside the building, it's on the right-hand side of the main room. And that those same tiles exist on the flip side of that building, and they lead all the way down the hallway. We would remove all those tiles as well and do that as part of that project. They're all connected.
And all of the ceilings be done? Or just
those are the only ones needed at this time. The ceilings in the bathrooms are plaster. And yeah, so in that back room, maybe one other room that could be done, but those back rooms aren't public rooms. Those are storage area rooms. But that's all continuous tile. So it makes sense to do that all together, that hallway and that main room project together. So depending on the asbestos results, the ceiling tiles, could be possible, asbestos in those. So we would have to go through the remediation process for that. And then we could put it out, for bid for the construction piece. The remainder of the work if there's any asbestos in the sampling from the other areas in the building, as long as we're not disturbing those materials, then we can continue to use them as such until we do that work. And that would be my recommendation, because I would like to have a more extensive review of the overall building. And if there are any other, besides what's apparent from looking at it from the inside, making sure there's, overall comprehensive kind of look at the building.
Would it, and I know getting contractors in has been difficult. If this project isn't going to be able to be completed this summer, would it make any sense to sort of put the brakes on the ceiling work and that front wall work while you guys do an extensive review of the building, in hopes that maybe package deal would save us some money?
I don't think so, because I don't know how long it's going to take to get a full cost estimate for the remainder of the work. So I would rather focus on, what we do know and what we do have cost estimates for to be done. And then we can put it into the capital planning process for fiscal 24 for the remainder.
Karen, if I may,
Yeah.
ahead of the 20 some odd thousand estimate that you have, is that just structural work, or does that include some wall covering and ceiling covering?
It's, yes, to reconstruct that wall, and a new ceiling on that side of the,
At this point, just the what's been disturbed so far is what that quote's for, correct?
correct.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Heather, if I may ask a few questions.
Mhm.
You said that the cost estimate was just received now in March. When was the cost estimate originally requested?
I believe back in the fall, that's when we started talking about early fall, it would have been for capital planning.
Okay, what was the process for getting that estimate? Like, I know you said, what you said now was, we were talking about it. What was the process for getting the estimate then?
So I wasn't directly involved, so I can tell you what the normal process is. Our facilities superintendent has various vendors that he works with. So he would reach out to those people that typically have done projects at different town buildings to try to secure estimates.
Who's our facilities superintendent? Oh,
Kit Walker, he's on medical leave right now, so.
okay. So you don't have the timeline on that, on when that actually was put in, like the paperwork went through for people to return?
I don't have an exact date for you now.
Heather, can I add a couple of comments, and it'll help Anna, I think, with your thought process. I don't have exact dates either, but the first process that Kit embarked on was getting one of his contractors in there to open up the ceiling and walls just to find out what we were looking at. That took a period of time just to get a contractor in there to do that work. Then the next step was to get another contractor in there to actually look at the conditions that were exposed and give us the estimate. So there were two lengthy time periods of delay where contractors were not available to do what we needed done. And I'm sorry, I don't have the dates, but that was the delay, the process of the delay.
Heather, earlier you made a comment that for now you would be the point of contact for any DPW requests. Can I ask what should be the expected timeline for if we send, I mean, mostly it's Karen who manages everything, but the timeline for getting a response back on an action item or something of a concern? Because I just imagine you have a lot of going on, but we just so we can plan it around what we have to do.
What it depends, I guess, on what is being requested, how extensive, the request is.
Okay.
Obviously, my response, I tried to respond to Karen's concerns as quickly as possible, but it did take time for me to connect with different people to get out to the building and try to formulate a game plan for our next steps.
I'd like to just throw in two things, and Heather, you've heard this from me before, and I know that some of the commissioners have. The issue with this front bowing wall has been known for 4+ years, Dave. So I guess I'm asking you as the town manager going forward that whoever ends up either in the role of facilities or ends up in the role of the DPW director, that the expectation is being made clear that when somebody brings a concern like this to the table, that it doesn't get strung out for years, because that's exactly what's happened. To say that I rode Rob Oliva to try to get some attention to this, and I know Dave was also speaking with him, it would not be an understatement. I can remember the first meeting it was brought up, and it was back with a previous DPW director. So I'm asking going forward that when we bring something to the table that whoever you're bringing in, that the expectations made clear to them that, this can't be dragged on for years. If there's a safety concern, which there absolutely is with that wall, that it be addressed sooner than later. My next.
Can I just respond for a second then?
Yeah.
And this is why I'm proposing a facilities director to be added in the budget for fiscal 23. We all know how many responsibilities that fall under the DPW. And it's a very large jurisdiction of different responsibilities that are very important for different parts of government operation. And facilities to me was a natural fit for DPW. So that's one of my main goals, is to get that position so it can address long-term planning and put more emphasis and focus on our facilities by one person rather than one person being split 6 different ways.
When you say facilities, do you just mean structural facilities, or do you mean that they would also be the ones in charge of like the overall maintenance of, say, Marshall Park?
Facilities and grounds.
Okay. So would it, when you hire facilities director, right now, the Parks Commission falls under the DPW, and we're sort of just, is, I don't know, maybe just some food for thought. Maybe there's a better place that we would fit once the facilities director is brought on. I don't know. We just sort of, like you said, previous DPW directors have been pulled in 1,000 different directions. We're just a drop in the bucket compared to the big things going on. But at the same time, we're trying to execute things and get things done. And we now have an employee that, I do not mind ever helping any of our employees be successful at their job. But I think that, having somebody there and fully, engaged as much as they can be would be nice as well. I do want to circle back a little bit to the asbestos. So when that report comes in, if there is any asbestos, to be clear on anybody who's watching this later too, asbestos isn't a risk unless it's disturbed. Asbestos can be encapsulated and covered and can stay there for decades. I completely understand that. We have if it comes back positive and the flooring is part of the positive asbestos area, I guess I would like some reassurance that what has already been disturbed, and I don't know what percentage it is going to be safe to even use as storage, or if those storage rooms need to be completely sealed off or whatever it is. I just want to make sure that our employees are going in and breathing healthy air and not stuff that's still, because the black mastic is exposed, if that's where the asbestos is. I don't fully understand, like when you're walking over it, does that kick stuff up? So
it's the abrasion of, meaning like if you had asbestos exposed and then become the abrasion, the particles, then,
Right. So I guess just maybe double check that. Like, it's the only part that would
be part of, the report.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. All right. Who else has stuff for Heather?
Heather, I'm just gonna circle back, and because we're on Zoom and we keep going back and forth, so I appreciate you just dealing with a little bit of the, going back and forth on subjects. With the bringing in the facilities, facilities director, and parks being the odd man out just about anything. And I understand why we have paired the position that is funded by the town has been paired with DPW as a way to utilize resources they would already have. But has any thought been given to restructuring the parks, the person who represents parks, onto a different group or a different part of the government, or is the plan to stay with DPW?
That's a really good point. that I'll take a further look at. If it
Okay.
makes more sense.
I don't
You
know
know-
anybody who wants us, but it's always worth exploring.
Yeah, and I know we don't have like a community center, like there are a lot of things that I would like to imagine and be able to support the town. That kind of encompasses, that park encompasses as well. But we do feel like, what we can do is very limited by the organization, the branch of government we are attached to. And as you bring new people in, and when we when you and Rob Oliver came to talk about Rob Thompson, I raised concerns. I have raised the concerns again, and some of my concerns have proven to be, came true, unfortunately, that, we got to set up people to be successful. And a way to do that is to really set clear expectations. So, as you go through the process of hiring a new DPW director, and if Parks is still there, and there is an employee that is within that organization, I would like to see communicated with us and with Rob Thompson, what is the expectation that we should expect from that position in terms of interaction with us and in terms of role they will play. Because that's how we can then set the expectation for communication, cooperation, and develop, a parks program, a community program, whatever we would like to do. So here we are in a time where we're looking to hire someone. It's a good time to kind of think about that and create the clear expectations so that, as I say, set people up to be successful versus them feeling like, oh my God, I have to deal with one more thing, and I have heard from one of our previous DPW directors, like 20 different committees that they have to be part.
Mm.
And I have a lot of sympathy for that, but how do we make a workable solution? And it should be, right? But like right now, I can't wait for Rob Thompson to give us his report. And, I feel like we don't have a system to support him, and, place that he can reach out to for him to feel supportive. If he has questions, people that are on his field, like having colleagues, having worked in small business and larger business. One thing about larger organizations is you have peers that you can bounce off ideas and build on ideas. And I think sometimes being as part of a, maintenance and building organization versus community focused organization might not be the ideal place for him. Not for him, but for the Parks and Rec person.
Mhm.
Yes. So I just wanted to, if you could keep that in mind, and perhaps let us know what your thoughts are, how we can make that successful.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Heather, on the last piece, the financial side of things, I've been doing this now for maybe 6 years, something along those lines. And I'm not afraid to admit for probably the 3,000th time that I don't fully have an understanding of how money gets expended from any of our accounts. So if you decide that a piece of the financial stuff needs to come out of our account, then you're going to have to be pretty clear and tell us exactly what we need to do to get that approved, because I don't, again, it's still, I opened the conversation up again today with Karen Brochu. I'm still sort of lost on how that piece is supposed to be executed. So if there's something from us that's needed, don't hesitate to tell us how it needs to be, what we need to do to try to get that to happen. So.
Okay, I don't think it requires any special action. I would notify you of what we would need for resources. I think right now, looking at the facilities budget for probably a bulk of the expense, but if we need additional funding, it would probably come out of the contracted services line. But I would work with Rob Thompson on what is needed in that account for the remainder of the year for any programming or anything that needs to come out of that account.
Okay.
So not to short it.
Okay, and just so we don't have to, I mean, you're welcome to stay, you're also welcome to go. But just because Rob's here and you're both here at the same time is always nice. In the past, however many years, when we talk about swim lessons, we've always charged for swim lessons, and probably 3 or 4 years ago, the goal of charging what we do charge for swim lessons was to try to cover the expense of that lifeguard that's there. So I have never been successful in getting anybody to cover the salary overages that we hit every year with some of that funds. So maybe you guys can sort of work together, because that is we're not looking to make money off of swim lessons. It's a service it's a benefit to the kids to have that. So we keep it as low as we can, and it should be covering the cost of those lifeguards. So that should help with part of our deficit that we hit on the salary line without having to have any creative movement from other line items. So maybe you and Rob at some point can chat about how to figure that out.
Yeah, I did talk to Karen Brochu about that in the last week or two, because of the lifeguard line and the beach director line, there is a current deficit.
Yep.
So she said every year it's been always the practice that that's partially funded through the deficit funded through the revolving account.
Okay, yeah, and nobody's ever come to us to have it taken out of there. So like, this is again where I'm not sure what Parks has to do to, are we supposed to be voting on something or not voting on something, and that sort of thing. So I just wanted to make sure it was known that it was there, because again, this swim lessons has not been a moneymaker for us. It's not where we're trying to make any money. We're just trying to offer the benefit to the kids in town that need to learn how to swim. So awesome. Thank
So
you.
just to circle back on, action items. I will work, and I'll work with Rob Thompson as well about securing the vendor, between Rob and Sam. I think they can handle that. Dave had passed along some quotes for portable restrooms, and I think Rob may have obtained some as well. Hopefully there's no overlap there, but we have some pricing to go off as well. For that, for timing of beach opening, are we looking?
So we typically open, and Rob's will probably have an update on staff for us in a couple of minutes, but I think it's going to hold true again this year that we'd be looking to open either the weekend after school gets out, which is the weekend of, I think this year school gets out, I think it's the weekend of the 25th. Although it's possible that we could open up the weekend before that, but I wouldn't expect anything really before the 18th of June.
Okay.
More
So
likely the
no
25th.
sooner than the 18th. Okay.
So, and I'm sure you know this, and Rob, I put it in that general folder today. The Board of Health, after our whole debacle last year with portable facilities down at Marshall, they have passed their own policy on, or reinforcement, I don't know what you want to call it, on putting in portable facilities. So we actually have to submit stuff to them, Rob, when we put our portable facilities, no matter where we put them. So never thought we'd be talking about portable potties for as often as we have. So thank you. I
you.
appreciate that. Will you send over those results for the asbestos when you have them?
Certainly. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And
Welcome.
if I'm right and there is asbestos, do I get like a pay raise?
Zero,
That's
zero.
0 to 0 to 0.
Like, I don't know, throw some change my way or something. All right, awesome.
Right. Any other questions from me?
I don't-
I'm
I
gonna stick
don't.
around for a couple minutes, but I'll just mute myself.
Yeah, I do not.
Yeah.
Do you have any, Emma?
No, I maybe if you could stick around for Rob's piece, which is next, just in case some question pops up that you wouldn't know the answer, but you would. We appreciate it.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
All right,
Welcome.
Rob, I'm gonna let you take it away. I'm gonna shut my camera off for a second, but I'm right here. So Rob, I'm gonna let you give an update on what you have going on in your office.
Can everybody hear me all right?
Sure can.
Okay, fantastic. For porta potties, since we are going the route of limiting the access to the beach house, porta potties from Sheldon's Portable Potties is $178 for 28 days. They suggested we reserve them relatively quickly because they think the season is going to be a lot larger than past couple years. So if I'm not sure if I have to suggest a length of time or the amount, but that is the flat rate for the service of the porta potties, and that's servicing, I believe, weekly, and to make sure all the supplies are all there for $178 per portable facility.
So that's servicing once a week?
Yes, in the contract it says it's once a week and then as needed. So they would facilitate all the supplies that go into it.
Rob, do they have a flat rate for those extra services? Most of them quoted flat rates for extra service, I believe. And maybe
I
South
wouldn't
Florida-
imagine the extra service. I think that would apply to if you had you know, some sort of activity that requires it to be emptied sooner than later. So
Right.
I will find out about the additional rate.
That's important because that varies from vendor to vendor. I had given you 3 vendors.
Absolutely.
Do we have to go through the process of 3 quotes for this? I know we don't have to go out to bid, but
No, it's this would be best business practice. Yeah, it's not going to reach the level where we need to bid it.
okay, thank you. The only other comment I have is pros and cons of ADA accessible.
I was gonna
portable
bring that up.
toilet. Yep.
Yep, you bring that up right now. I actually don't know how, I don't think it should be optional. I think, was that 178 price, Rob? Do you know if that was an ADA facility or if it wasn't?
You know what? I did not even consider to ask for those larger ADA compliant. If I would have assumed like already that that's what the case was, but that is right. I guess I should have.
That's okay. So I think that unless somebody has a strong disagreement with it, I think that's the type of facility we should put in, number one, because we do have people with disabilities that use that. My other thought is it's a larger unit, and do not laugh at this, but I can lost count on how many times I've had to jam my kids into a stall at a bathroom because I was the only adult there, and this is a public beach and it's on a public road. And I just think that, you know, the larger facility, even though we don't want to lug our kids into a porta potty when we have to use it, I think it would be beneficial for even just.
How many facilities is it suggested for us to have there at the beach?
My suggestion would be, you know, based off of just historical numbers of last year, you know, obviously the numbers I'm hoping are going to be much greater this year, but I would start with, I want to say 3, and I'm not sure if that's overkill, but if not, 2 would be the minimum I would suggest.
So I'm gonna say only overkill, Rob, because we've had 2 bathroom facilities there in the past and nobody's complained, like none of the staff. And I think Jared Bowser, have you had any problems with just having 2 bathroom facilities down there?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, thank you.
The difference here, Karen, is well, I was gonna, before we get to that point, I was going to ask what is, you know, if it's the maintenance is done weekly, they must have some information about how many people services a day.
Yes, They certainly do. They suggested you know, it's based off a gallon model, so per porta potty, depending on what number, but I would imagine 3, based off the number of people we've had go through there in the last couple of years, 3 would be sufficient. 4 would be obviously a little better because you're spreading the weight, but as for lack of better terms, the more the merrier, but 3 would be my suggestion for the minimum.
So my suggestion would be, because we don't have the numbers for how much it would cost to have service more often than once.
Yep.
So it's a little bit of doing what it would be the cost estimate to have more facilities and just be serviced once, right? Or have fewer facilities and be serviced multiple times, but then we do need to take in consideration how often we would need to service those facilities. And the other suggestion I will have is to not look at the numbers for the past couple of years, but maybe look at the summer 2019 to really get an idea of the expected flow, because I think overall our tendency tends to be somewhat consistent until COVID came. Is that correct, Karen?
I believe so.
Yeah. And I know 2019, we had more people in 2019 than 20 or 21.
And Rob, funny enough, I think I saw that when I was going through my paperwork today. So I will, I'll go back through and see if I can find some of the numbers from 2019.
And one thing I would say, just by just thinking of what we're talking about here, if it's the case that based on the number of people per day, it's like we're a little over 2, but not quite 3 yet. I would say let's look if the cost is similar to maybe having 2 and having a service a couple times a week versus just once. And I just think hygienically it would be better because you get fresh supplies, you're dealing with kids, and thinking having a bathroom facility looked at a couple times a week seems like a healthy thing to do. So if the comparing cost, 3 once a week and 2 service a couple times a week, I would think service a couple times a week is a.
So I think the other thing that's could change the way that we want to decide on the numbers is going to be our space limitations and where we're going to put them.
Yes.
And yeah, because you would need the flats, and the beach is not flat. So are we talking about building a dock, a platform type of thing? A bunch of pallets?
No,
I think-
well, if you consider where the beach house sits and where you have to go, you'd have to go to either the beach, or if we opened up the picnic area, that's the flattest portion of it. We could place them over there, but then you're forcing the patrons to kind of leave, kind of go out. But if that's the biggest inconvenience to have portable facilities, I believe that's that's par for the course. We have to have it done. The other suggestion would be, the beach is literally just sand that's brought in and it's covering ledge, and you can see some of the exposed ledge. We would either have to just kind of flatten out an area or bring in some more sand. And I'm not a structural engineer, and I'm not sure what the limitations of bringing sand to waterways or.
I think it requires conservation. Did we have to deal with conservation in the past, Dave, for that stuff? Do you remember?
Well, we haven't put portable toilets there, so we've never done that, but conservation has jurisdiction over that entire beach because they're within the no-touch zone.
But I know we have put more sand there.
I think it went in front of, we did, and I think it went in front of conservation when we did it. I'm just throwing it out there that if we want to do something that requires sand, that we're gonna, on the beach, on the actual beach, I think we're gonna have to have it, go in front of conservation at some point.
The other serious issue about attempting to put those portable toilets over in the old playground area is that walking outside of that ramp to get across the whole front of the building on the street, you're going to be in the street. So if you can't put Jersey barriers up there to protect the public, then we're setting ourselves up for a serious problem.
I'd have to look again to see what the distance is from the edge of the road to the house, the front railing of that ramp. I would think some sort of Jersey barrier could be put up so that people could walk.
Yeah, there might be enough room there, I agree, but we need to keep that in mind.
Yeah, I think that would be a good safety first policy for sure.
All right, so Rob, sorry, Anna.
No, go ahead. I think you might be going where I'm going. So.
No, I'm not going where you're going. I promise I'm not.
Well, I was gonna ask Rob, what is then your action items for as regards to porta parties?
One more time.
So just what is your plan going forward? Like, is it to define where they're gonna go? So just because we only meet once a month, so
Yeah.
I'm just hoping for what are you envisioning that will happen over the next month, and where will we be within 30 days when we see you again?
Okay. Well, based off of like my suggestions, I would love to put them on the beach, but we are not prepared for the beach to accept leveled porta potties. So if everybody's okay with it, I would suggest putting it in the playground or the former playground side, just because it is flat. Working on Jersey barriers and what it would take to make a very safe perimeter, I would have to take some guidance on that, because I'm not sure where I would first off get the Jersey barriers, and if I could get them implemented by DPW or whoever. Yeah, I would like a little guidance on that as well.
Heather, is that where you jump in?
I would have to look into that too. We don't typically use Jersey barriers, so usually those have been on projects that such as the bridge project. So, but I can work on that.
Okay.
Are there large stones anywhere that DPW has in possession or anything that way? We could drop a few. I mean, you don't need a lot of it. It's not a wide sort of berth, right? So you only need a few to prevent cars from kind of zipping in between, probably.
Chris, we haven't been able to find one boulder to block the access into Marshall Park. I can't imagine having to cover 50 feet of roadway.
We're a town full of ledge.
Yeah. The only other issue you've got is that, as Rob mentioned at the beginning of his report about portable toilets, he's going to need to make a commitment fairly quickly for 2 or 3 toilets to make sure that we'll get them when we need them at the end of June. If you don't make the commitment in April, I'm guessing there's a good chance they're not going to be available.
Well, I don't think, I think making the commitment is a different path than, finalizing where they're going to go. Because that one, we just need to make the best decision based on best business practice, and also how to best use the available funds for the community. Is it better to have 2 service a couple times a week, which I think it would be, or 3 service, and also by being 2, we will need less space. So that can be done independently of finalizing where they're going to go and some of the other details we're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm late to the party here, but we need ADA compliant porta potties, right?
Yeah, you're late to the party, Chris. Sorry.
Yeah.
I was coaching soccer. I'm frozen right now. I'm not on camera yet because I'm eating dinner as I'm talking, so you don't have to watch me eat.
Happy guy. Okay, so Rob, can you follow those 2 paths? And do you think by when we come back next month that will be finalized?
Absolutely. I will figure out where, how we can set up a very safe perimeter and to, accommodate either side, or if which way we're going, and I will have that information for you.
Okay, yeah. Okay,
What's the,
um,
is there parking in front of the? I'm trying to remember where the no parking is. Where's the no parking?
Opposite side of the street.
So you can park in front, like, I'm just trying to think outside, like, if we have. Like, does staff leave during the day? Like, do they leave at all?
Sometimes, depending on what shift they're on.
Yeah, I was just trying to think if we could use staff cars to like kind of create almost a
So there's,
staff parking only area and use their cars as a means of stay inside the cars and walk against the buildings.
I'm not sure that there's actually a no parking area. There might be some small ones, but I know directly across from that area, there's, people have always parked on both sides of the road. The other thing that I don't know if we remember where the gate is to get into that area. There's a neighbor that parks a car there all the time, so I don't know. I think Rob's just gonna have to go down there one day and really take a look at it and see what, can you fit a Jersey barrier in? Can you fit a car in? Then the only problem with relying on cars is that maybe one day one of our younger lifeguards drives, and then the next time he doesn't drive himself in. So now you're waiting for a car that's not coming. And do you really want people walking, really close to your car? Especially kids swinging plastic shovels.
You're gonna need a permanently placed barrier, whether it be weighted posts with chain in between or Jersey barriers or whatever, but counting on cars to protect the public from the street, that's never gonna fly in a lawsuit.
No.
So I think if we can, so Rob, why don't you continue? Let's investigate that, go down and take a look, see what there is for space, if we can get Jersey barriers even accessible to us, and then go from there.
Yes, absolutely. I will have that information. Semi-permanent barriers or, but something that will protect the public. So
Can
we
somebody go turn a heater on for Chris? Because he looks absolutely freezing. Oh my
See, frozen,
goodness.
it's like 30 degrees outside. Windy. Holy cow.
Yes, I see. Okay. All right, Rob, what else do you have for us?
Update on the beach employees. I have a list of potential applicants. My recommendation, based off of.
Can I stop you for a sec?
Sure.
Because the entire commission doesn't know this tidbit of information yet. For the last 35 or so years, Jen Nass has been the beach coordinator / director down at the town beach. She is hanging up her hats. So she did not apply for the position of beach director. So now you can take it away, Rob.
Yes, that's correct. Jen Nass has did not want, or she reluctantly I don't want to say declined, but she did not reapply for the director's position. The applicant that did apply was Elizabeth Simone.
Simeone.
Excuse me?
Simeone.
Oh, Simeone, yes. Elizabeth Simeone, and she has extensive qualifications, right up there with what her mother was doing as well, and a few other things. But she is qualified for the position of beach director in terms of requirements. It would be my suggestion to move forward with Elizabeth Simone.
Okay. And then what do we have for lifeguards?
Lifeguard,
Applied.
yes, same thing. From their extensive the requirements that are requested of them, they all meet the requirements, and they all are rehires from last year.
Okay.
It is, I have 4 here, and I'm going to suggest my recommendation to move forward with them as well.
So you only had 4 applicants for lifeguard?
That's all that was given to me as a present. We're going to repost throughout. Julie said she could repost again as well because of the fact that Elizabeth Simone is no longer, she was a considered applicant for the lifeguard position, but in terms of these 4, they want hours. They're very eager to work. So I would imagine just starting off with this, it's a great position to be in anyways. But yes, I only have 4.
Okay,
Karen, what's our full staffing?
so that's the problem. We've never been able to fully figure that out. Last year we brought on a couple later in the season. And added them into the mix because that had been the plan all along, was to hire. Jared, I know you're on. Do you remember how many lifeguards were down there last year, including Miss Nass?
Second to count, but I can give you that answer.
Okay, if you get it, let me know. So I don't know. I'm just putting together who I think we had.
One other quick comment, if we're gonna, we must have had a deadline on that posting. Did it not say or until all positions are filled?
It was
Yeah.
still posted this morning when I saw it.
And it does say that until all positions are filled?
I'm not sure.
That's what our postings usually include.
Right.
But I have that we had 8 lifeguards.
8 last year. That makes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That makes sense. So I have if you have the names, I have no problem, motioning for, accepting a motion tonight to recommend the hiring of those positions. The one thing that I can tell you, Rob, is that depending on who those 4 lifeguards are, Liz Simeone may need to file something, and I don't remember what it's called, because if any of those lifeguards are her children, there's some sort of conflict in there, because Jen had to file a few years back. So I just want to make sure that if any of these lifeguards are her children, that gets taken care of.
Noted.
Is that even allowed? I would assume it's allowed if we're entertaining this, Heather, to have
Yeah.
her see her children.
Disclosure of
Yes.
conflict of interest. Yes.
Yes. Okay.
I will be sure there's no illegal forms of nepotism.
Thank you. And they're good about it. I mean, it's not like
Yeah,
it
we'll
needs
follow.
to be filed.
Yeah. Will do. Okay.
So is this something, this is the question of the commission, do we want to move forward with these 4 rehires and then bringing Liz Simeone on as the beach director? She is our only applicant, and I can tell you, over the past 4 years that we've posted this job while I've been here, we have only gotten a single applicant in the past. So I don't expect to suddenly have an influx of applicants.
I'd
What is-
support the decision. Are you looking for a motion?
Second
We need a
that.
motion to,
I do. I need to get names from them. So, Rob, we have Liz Simeone or Elizabeth Simeone. Can you tell me who the lifeguards are? I know we have Jared Bowser, Ian Laundry. Can you tell me who the other 2 are?
I do not see Ian Laundrie's resume.
You don't have his? He told me he sent it in.
Okay, I have to double check. I do have a slew of emails. Sometimes they get lost in the mix
That's fine.
due to the subject lines, but the ones I do have are Ethan Gengler,
Yep,
Paige Gengler,
yep.
Nicholas Coronella,
Ornella, yep.
and Jared Bowser.
Okay. Okay. So Paige and Ethan are her children. So she is going to need to file some sort of disclosure. If we can, Jared, did Mason throw his application in, or is he pursuing other employment this summer?
I thought he submitted it, but I'm gonna be completely honest, I don't.
It's okay. Can you double check your email, Rob, when you get a free second? We don't have to put these 2 kids through tonight. We can do it next month. You're gonna be looking for Ian, it's EAN Laundry, and Mason Bowser. Those would have been our other 2 that we had at the beach last summer.
Look into that. Ian
Right.
Laundry and Mason Bowser.
Yeah, and if you can hit me up tomorrow too, and I can, I know that I asked Ian a couple weeks ago and he told me that he had sent it in. So I just want to make sure they don't get lost in the shuffle.
I will look into
So,
that.
all right,
So you have a beach director and 4 lifeguards
Right.
at this point.
yep,
I'd make a motion that we recommend to the town manager that she request appointment by the Board of Selectmen, or she appoint through the Board of Selectmen, the beach director, Liz Simeone, and then the 4 names that were presented to the chair of this committee a few minutes ago.
Paige Gengler, Ethan Gengler, Jared Bowser, and Nick Corradella.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Let's do a quick roll call. Dave,
I'm
Anna,
I,
Pat, are you still here?
I am still here.
How do you vote on that one?
Yes,
Okay, and Chris?
Aye.
And it's an I for myself. Okay,
You say aye, Pat, not yes.
yes is good too. It doesn't matter.
I thought we might get a okey-dokey.
oh. We do ayes in the union. I mean, yes in the union.
Full committee does yes too. So whatever you do is fine. All right, perfect. So Heather, I'll send you over an email with that. She might have dropped off.
no,
she's-
Heather's here.
Okay, I just didn't see it.
Do we have any update from Rob as regard to programs, what's going on? And I don't know if that was, I wasn't sure if you're about to move on, Karen.
No,
So I
no,
just
well,
want,
I was definitely going back to that because I do know he has an answer to that.
okay,
Yes, well, I'm not sure if we're past the beach yet. In terms of rates, my suggestion, I'm not sure if it's applicable here, but I would imagine I wouldn't change too much of the rates considering what we offer and what we get in. I think as a suggestion, I would just keep it the way it was, if that's.
So we're talking beach fees for season for passes and
Yes.
for, okay. Yep, so that's last year. I'm just trying to pull it up real quick.
Karen, we added in most of the combinations that we had kind of taken out 2 years ago, didn't we, this past year with, we brought the season passes back, the out-of-town season passes, so on and so forth. So we had a full complement of options this past beach season.
We do, and I'm opening my, I'm opening it right now because I actually sent it over to Rob. Rob earlier today. Where did it go? So yeah, that's not right. Oh, yes, that's right. Hold on a second. I got the wrong thing up. So our 2021 beach seas, last year we got a little bit creative with our daily rate, and we did $5 per adult, which included up to 3 children, 15 and under.
yes.
And then we had done $2 per senior or additional child. Our non-resident was set up the same way with $10 for adults, including 3 children, 15 and under, with $5 for a non-resident senior or additional child. Our resident passes were $65. Our non-resident passes were $80. Our resident individual was $44, and our non-resident individual was $60. We had $23 for our resident senior pass and $35 for our non-resident senior pass. So that's what we had last year. I think the last 2 years, and we got creative with the way we listed things last year. But I think that the last 2 years were COVID. So I think I agree with Robin, just leaving rates the way they are. And hopefully getting a better idea of what the beach season looks like without COVID hanging over our heads. At least I hope it's not hanging over our heads.
Okay, I do like that. I know I had high hopes for the family, an adult with 3 kids, and I think there's a lot of mileage we can get out of that. I like keeping it the way it is. I don't think if we're trying to do a, price correction based on inflation or anything, there's a meaningful amount that we can change. So I would suggest us to keep this. I could even make a motion if everybody's okay with keeping the passes at the same cost as last
I'd second that. Was that a
Okay.
motion? That was a
year.
motion.
That is a motion. That was a motion. Yes, thank you.
I'd
you.
second that.
All right, let me do any discussion on it.
I'm good.
Okay, let's do a quick roll call on that. Dave,
I'm,
Anna,
I
Chris.
Aye.
Pat,
Aye.
and it's an aye from myself. So that's in that folder I sent over tonight or earlier today, Rob, but I will try to resave it and put 2022 on it so we know that we approve that for this year. I don't remember off the top of my head, and I tried to look quick today what swim lesson fees were. So I'd like to take that up next meeting, just because we don't have any numbers in front of us to even consider from last year.
okay. Fair.
Rob, can you give us some update on any future programming that you have,
Or current.
current or future programming, as well as what we're looking at for current field usage going on now through Little League or the high school?
All right, the fields, Marshall Park in particular is lined up for usage as of Monday, a week ago. So the high school has started to practice on the field, running drills. As well as the Little League, they are scheduled for this year as well. And to include the Lunenburg Phillies with Joe Ruth.
Okay, so he's already reached out to you, and that would start probably sometime in May for the Phillies, late April, early May, somewhere in
Yes,
there.
I think so.
Okay. He's really good, by the way, of making sure to check in with the high school program so that he's not causing a traffic jam down there.
No,
Yeah.
I understand that as well. It's filling up, and I'm trying to basically manage my way into the McNally parks and other areas where I don't have my eyes continuously, but I know there seems to be activity, but I still yet to reach out with people who are using or intend to use the field for this year as well.
It's all going to be the Little League. It's all going to, McNally is going to be the Little League. It's the Little League Minors program. And Fitzgerald Field over on Reservoir Road is also going to be the Little League, and it's going to be their instructional or minor softball, and then their instructional baseball. So all of our fields, we have 7 baseball fields / T-ball fields. All of them will be in use. 6 of them will be in use by Little League, with the 90-foot diamond in use by the high school, and a little bit later, Joe Ruth from the Phillies.
All right,
And they should, if you reach out to, and Chris Begley's on here, I don't know who handles the scheduling. I don't know if it's him or somebody else, but at one point they had a Google Calendar that they would update their schedule on. And then they must have shared it with me at some point years ago, because I can still, Chris, you can unmute. Because I still can see that. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, we're in the process of putting the schedules together now. We'll probably have them together in a few weeks. So once we have a master calendar, either Steve, RJ, or myself can get you guys
Thanks.
everything.
You can just go to Rob, just so we know
Okay.
who's.
excellent.
So, how about any programming, Rob?
So programmings in terms of youth camps and teen camps and adventure camps, like large scale programs that are extended day programs. I've had to seek out the, I'm partnering up with other recreational facilities, Littleton or Townsend, just kind of piggybacking on to their programs because they're able to offer large scale programs that I was not able to lock down in terms of dates and price wise. Since they have such big programs, they're offering these to non-resident programs. So I got to speaking with them, and they, they are all for. Obviously, I think most people would be all for somebody promoting their programs, but it enables us to offer these programs at the same cost of what the resident here would basically participate in the program. So I can offer the wide range of youth programs for teens and youth. To include, we'll have. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, but would the location of those programs be out of town?
Yes, that's exactly right. They are not town programs. I'm hoping, into the next coming year or so to have a more of an established either volunteering services and whatnot that I could, offer these within our community. Being just myself as a director to implement all this stuff, there's so many moving parts, and just, to have even, let's say, I'm instructing more than a certain amount of kids in some sort of instructional camp course, it would require more than 19 hours in a given week for me to implement something of that nature. So these are the suggestions. We don't necessarily have to go this route, but just to be able to offer these type of services is the reason why I reached out to other surrounding townships.
So, I mean, one thing that I speak this, so okay, so let's just put this, you're talking about youth programs exclusively, right? Right now, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, camp programs that are full day and that will be offered throughout the summertime.
For children, just not like adult. Okay, so it is not the same thing. As a parent, I can tell you that. So in the past, there's been, and Dave could probably speak a lot more than a lot of. I think maybe Chris hasn't lived in town. Chris, how long have you lived in town?
Since 2005.
Oh, so we're the same. Okay, so no, so I think it's a good idea if we can't offer a wide variety of programs, that if we can piggyback on some, but I think we owe a little bit to the residents of our town to offer something in town, because to offer in these satellite towns, it is, we're in our town, and coming to the town and service the parents, it's a whole other thing. It's I don't think we'll be achieving necessarily the goal that we would like to. So although if you are here to take a suggestion, is those are viable and would allow us to offer more, I don't think that should be exclusively what we're relying on.
No, by no means. This is not the model would be to offer all residents within the town these type of services, being that, like I said, 19 hours only can get me so far, and being able to lock down, let's say, biking sports, for instance, they have staff shortage to the extent where I could not get them to come out to where we are. They're located more westernly than we are, but to get them to lock in on a time, they don't have the staff to supply. That's the reason why I couldn't lock them in into the timeline. I would have been able to offer something, but I was far too I won't say too late on that.
In the past, it used to be when we first moved to town, there was a volunteer program. I guess Dave told me it was a volunteer program where there was a basketball camp or tennis camp, or, it was a half a day program, and it was mostly run by high school students and, and using school facilities and so forth. But I don't know, like, if we explored some of, and I know you're limited by the time that you have, but I do feel like we should try to explore something in town, no?
Oh, I agree. And I'm not stopping that pursuit. And I didn't want to come off as that's the only programming. I would love, this is exactly where I would want to be, is directly in town, offering a slew of services to both, youth as well as, seniors and alike. To be able to offer all those, there is a lot more, for programs that have staffing, they can have greater, obviously, I'm not trying to make excuses, but in the scope of things right now, the availability they have towards, being able to offer the programs to us, I'm just putting them as a link of information on our site. And that's basically all I'm really doing. In the future, I want to have programming here, and obviously my intentions to do so would be gradually as we move forward. I have other programming in mind, as well as hiking and mountain biking.
But so okay, let's just talk about summer, because I hear you. We all want to, I hear you. But for the summer, what you're saying is, right now, what you have in mind that we'll be able to offer is just satellite programs into other towns and cities programs. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
For the teen, youth and teens, for extended day programs, week-long programming. Yeah.
So there's nothing that we can come up within town through like I'm sorry, it's my job a little bit of like,
No.
have we reached out to, have we put a post on Facebook saying, looking for volunteers to put on a basketball program or a baseball program, or something like, what
Well,
have we done to like exhaust some of the offering anything in town? I would be heartbroken if we can simply cannot offer anything in town for our youth. It's just, I don't find that's a very, Chris has run soccer program based on volunteers only.
No, I do. There are potential programs in the works, so I do.
For the summer.
For the summer, yes. Basketball program. The youth soccer programs are obviously right beside that. I will be advertising for that. Those are not my programs, but I will be helping facilitate those type of programmings, as well as filling the gaps of bike tours, mountain biking, as well as outdoor fitness in the park. I want to have magic in the park, a Disney type of musical, with stuff that we can offer in terms of just daily programming or something. But for summer programming, I will definitely have to keep on, I guess what I say, seeking the vendors that are willing to commit for such a short timeline to come in and offer a program for a varied age group.
How about us organizing a couple?
What do you want to organize, Anna?
Well, Chris organized soccer in the fall. Why can't we organize
Well,
something?
it's once a week though. I mean, it's not a week long program. So I'm working, I just started working with Rob a little bit here just in the last 24 hours on a once a month first Sunday basketball clinic that we're trying to get off the ground with some basketball volunteers. Just skills and drills for a couple of different age groups. So we're trying to kind of work on something that way. I think there's, Best Soccer, like, I don't know if Best Soccer has been contacted at all. That's always a big program. That's a huge one and very popular.
I'm sending Rob a email as we speak, Chris, with Paul Mumby's contact.
Okay. So that's a good one for soccer. That's always a popular game. So what I'll say, I'd love to see some in-town camps for sure. I know Rob's getting his feet wet, here and so forth. And I think there's a balance between, I think we need to scale back what's been done in the past for sure. there was too much. I mean, we've had that discussion before. There was too much going on and just too much contracted out and a lot of different things going on and a lot of things got canceled because the attendance wasn't there and things of that nature. So I think, you know,
No, but
hopefully
we're
maybe
talking about
Rob
going
has
from,
some, hold on. I understand, but where, you know, hopefully Rob can kind of get into old notes, databases and so forth and see what was popular, what was, you know, well attended and focus on a few of those there going forward. Again, the best soccer is one that comes to mind because I know for sure that was one that's always well attended. I'd love to see some of the other things that Rob is talking about as well. Like I know we've had, you know, posters advertised in the past on the rec site of, you know, Monday night movies in the park and, you know, Wednesday night ice cream socials or whatever they were. And nothing really came to fruition pre-COVID. So it'd be great to see some of that off the ground. I think if there's a means of us periodically driving people this summer to Marshall for a, you know, a movie night in the park or something that way, like that kind of is a step in a direction that I think we'd love to see, to drive some folks to Marshall while we're working on a master plan here and so forth and things like that. Maybe that's not a program per se for kids all week, but it's something that the park commission, or not the park, the rec department could put their stamp on. Park commission, we could certainly help with that effort, I'm sure. You know, I hear what you're saying with volunteers. The problem with volunteers is they're volunteers.
yeah, but that is high
And I
school
say
students, you know,
there
like.
are, but you're relying on a lot of, like, if you're going to say like, let's run a week-long XYZ program for kids and use high school student volunteers to organize it or adult volunteers to organize it, we're relying on parents
Paid,
dropping those kids off, you know, for a
I, you know,
program and then waiting for, you know, making sure that those volunteers are there to organize a program. And there's, I'm sure, a lot of liability involved in that sort of deal.
you know, it has been like going from too much to zero is a big, like, and that's what we're talking about, you know, reaching out to the high school basketball coach and asking for, you know, I mean, well, basketball team is usually 10 people, you know, the name of their 10 players and trying to sign up 6 of them to run a basketball camp from 9 to 12, 5 days, and, you know, once throughout the summer is offering something. We can pay for it. You know, I don't know. It has been done in the past, and that's going from too much to zero. And I don't understand. And, you know, and Rob, it's tough on being a one-man, to be a half-man show and trying to do all this. That's what you're saying with the 20 hours. But, you know, here you have a group of 5 people that have experience and are willing to help. And I don't know how much you work with Chris and Karen, but come to our meetings, talk with us. We are a resource for you. And, you know, I have been trying to figure out how we can work and be successful together. But this is literally going from too much to zero. And I think we owe the town more than that. We have a budget for the town, for parks, that encompasses more than $100,000. Like, we gotta be able to offer something. We had $30,000 on one account. Why can't we tap into that and hire the high school students to do this? I don't know. Can we get onto I don't know.
Yeah, hiring is, so I think part of this is going into a discussion for another night, because there's bits and pieces to hiring that it's not as.
Well, I'm sorry, it's going into another night, because we haven't had this conversation before, because nobody comes to our meetings, so we can have these conversations.
Anna, what it boils down to is you can't have a bunch of high school kids run a camp for 2, 3, 4, 5 days without them all being vetted. There's Board of Health regulations. There's a lot of work to running a camp.
And
nowadays.
we are doing that with the town beach. Why don't we replicate the same process when we want to plan? We
Or
are literally.
Who's going to do all the legwork to make that happen? You want our rec director to be successful at 19 hours a week, and you want him to do all this extra programming.
Three camps.
Could I finish, please? I'd be happier if we are super successful with the town beach for the entire season, and we run some one and done events through our rec director, and then partner with summer camps outside of town, or if it would work for them, invite them to use our facilities with whoever they're contracting with. And they've got to be contracting with people, because they're not, unless they have people vetted like we used to have here in town. You can't run a camp that simply.
Well, we are running camps. We are running the town beach. Why don't we replicate the model?
We hired a full-time town beach. We're hiring a full-time beach person to manage the beach all day. Rob's not here. Rob isn't
Right.
here. I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're
It's
saying.
just, it's just too
Hold
late
on,
in
hold
the
on.
game.
I'm not discrediting what you're saying. Like, it'd be great to offer a few programs this summer and a few weeks of programming. And maybe, Karen's going to send in the best soccer information, and maybe Rob can make contact with best soccer, and we run that for a couple weeks this summer. Another looking at records from old rec stuff, and see if there's another vendor that we can bring in for a week. But I also hear what Rob is saying. He's got 19 hours a week to manage a program. He can't staff it. You can't just have high school kids run a camp and leave the high school kids there to run a camp. Rob can't be there for
Okay, so
that amount
now
of time
I'm
to
saying
cover
something
that.
is taking out of context. We're talking about staff. We have a beach director, and that person runs that event. So you hire someone to run, like, finding ways to get something done. I can give you a million different ways to get it done. And we are actually getting something done. But right now, with the beach, right now we're getting nothing done. It's really, it's a failure. That's it. It's too late in the game. It's practically April, and we don't have time to plan. We could have had time to plan if we were planning in January what we would like to do for summer. Let's hire X, Y, and Z to, maybe coming to town, and let's do, ABC in town with X, Y, Z resources. That's what we do for the town beach. It is doable, and that's it. But it is doable. But maybe it's too late to be done, but it is doable. And it is a shame that we are going to go from too much to literally offering nothing in town in terms of program.
So I sent contacts over to Rob. I actually sent him two. I actually have a query form that is sitting in my mailbox that needs to be filled out, because I've already spoken with Rob about being able to do some sort of programming for a couple of different age ranges, from little people and utilizing some of our playgrounds and sort of, doing that sort of thing, up to maybe getting some, something for our seniors, even if it's just a walking group that walks different areas. So there is stuff going. I think that it's been this past year, almost a year, it's been tough, because when our previous rec director left, I don't think there was a lot of thought that went into leaving. So even a lot of our policies, procedures, that sort of thing, Rob didn't have. And he's actually just getting his hands on them today, because I spent most of the day going through old emails. So I think that, finding the support that he needs to be able to execute his expectations for his 19 hours a week and get some sort of programming going, I think that's difficult. So I understand what you're saying, going from an overpacked schedule down to 0. I don't disagree. I mean, I do disagree, however, that it's too late. I think that even though it's the end of March, I think that, he can put some feelers out to the couple of contacts that we did, and we can get some, single day events, put in, even if it's a movie night, if it's an ice cream social night, if it's, somebody wants to volunteer and play the guitar in the middle of the field and everybody has a picnic, dinner around them or something. There's stuff that we can do. I just think that, we also don't want to overdo it. So I think we've thrown out some thoughts to Rob, and let's see if he can run with some of them over the next few weeks and what he can come back to us with in April. And I think we're all available to him if he needs help with getting any of these up and running. Does that make sense to anybody? Does that sort of help at all?
So, well, okay, so since, we are too late to talk about, maybe doing week-long programs for summer, Rob, what is your plan for fall? Like, it seems like if now it's too late, we should start be thinking about the next season. Like, let's then, like, these are the things that we have to do. Let's plan for the fall then. Let's plan a kick-ass fall. What is that's going to be? And then the other thing I'll ask you is, what are you thinking? Whatever, even if you're reaching out to, if all we're going to offer is outside town programs, anyway, how are you planning to let the families in town know that? Are you reaching out to the Ledger, our Facebook page, put information there? The school, I'm sure, has ways to communicate with parents about what's available for kids to do. The senior center, are you planning any senior programs? So can we start planning fall? What should we expect
No,
for it?
Absolutely. No, we can fall implementing fall activities. Obviously it's something I have no intentions of running a model that is exclusively outside of the town. And, I don't want anybody to lower the expectations. But, there are programming, I guess, limitations for myself in terms of just finding the support in terms of making sure I'm moving in the right direction. I'm slowly getting acclimated with these things. I know it feels like I've been here forever, but we have to consider when I came in, what I was kind of left with, and still with the information that I am left with, there was anybody can populate a calendar, but the feasibility factor has to be, can I implement these where I can make it happen? And a majority of it I can put on paper, and we can just keep on, either if it goes, we'll make it happen. If it can't, then we'll cancel it. And my intentions are to have far greater programming and something so you can feel like there is something. I don't want to go from 100 to 0 miles, but for programming for the fall, I will definitely have more programming, more robust programming across a diverse range of ages as well.
Thank you. We got a hand up, Heather.
Thank you. Rob and I have met recently, and Rob has lots of great ideas for programming, but what we've discussed in the past. We want to start small and build on that program model. And so he's, aware of that. I know, looking at all different avenues. I know he has reached out to certain vendors that were used in the past that were successful. So I think part of the problem was that they weren't able to come for full day programs, right, Rob?
Correct.
But we also discussed partnering with the library and the senior center on different programming as well. So any kind of synthesis we could achieve there for different populations within town as well. So I know he's actively trying to figure out programs for the town.
Do we have any programs running right now? Or what are the programs running right now?
So basketball will be, well, other than the Little League and making sure the facilities are all basically running, we do not have any current program.
You had tried to do a badminton.
Yeah, badminton
right.
never took off.
Yeah.
What did you do to help it take off? What was the steps?
Those are the things that we're working on. I posted it on Facebook, and that's as far as I went. I didn't go to the Ledger. I did not, all those, avenues you suggested. Those are the things I have a phone that still says Kayla for all intents and purposes, but it has a business suite on it that I am accessing, and everything should be under one, I guess, one touch of a button. It is not there yet.
Okay. I'm sending you, I'm sorry, I'm distracted, but not distracted. I'm sending you another contact right now. I think that where I completely get where you're coming from, Rob, in just getting your feet wet in this whole, the Little League program and the Phillies and the high school and the utilizing the fields and getting stuff set up for there and still learning the ins and outs of Munis and everything else that comes with it. It would be nice if we could see if we could get some programming on. And I know that the easiest target is usually kids. It would actually be wonderful, I think, if we could, even get something on for some of the middle-aged folks like ourselves. I don't know if that's what we're really considered yet, but and I think that, I think Heather is right. Looking at the library and the senior center, and actually those may be some contacts that just come naturally, because the senior center offers programming for the seniors, but we may be able to get those same people that ran programming for them, we may be able to get them in for us and run programming for the younger crowd. So I think that there's a ton of ideas out there. It's picking them out and then sort of going back, and you don't have that, you didn't have that contact base that I think our former rec director came with. She had been doing this for a million years, and she came with a lot of contacts. That naturally, she had those, and you're trying to build that. So I have one more email I'm gonna hit send on. I think I gave email addresses, but they're easy to find if I didn't. Maybe shoot them out an email and see if it's something they'd be interested in, because once it's set up, it should hopefully be low maintenance on your ends in terms of, they just come in and they run their program. This is what they do. So hopefully it wouldn't cut into your 19 hours once it's established, other than a few minutes, before it's set to take off, to say, these are our final numbers for registrations and this is who they are. So, but we'll sort it. Thank you. I appreciate it. Does anybody have any other questions for Rob before we move on to what I thought was going to be our biggest agenda item at 8:37 p.m.?
Well, the one question I would have for Rob, which we haven't touched, is did he see the Marshall Park presentation and does he have any feedback? Because I don't know if he was staying here for that part of the meeting. So that's where my question, if he's staying for the part of the meeting we were talking about Marshall Park, sure.
Are you staying on, Rob?
Yes, I'll stay.
Okay. All right. So
The only other comment I had, I know staffing shortages are impacting abilities to get full-time programs here and so forth for the summer, Rob. So that's certainly understandable. And I'm seeing that in the staffing industry and so forth, just in general, and just trying to get people to go to work and, that sort of deal. But I'm kind of on to what Dave was saying, where if we can run some one-off programming kind of deal, just something for, parents to bring kids to or whatever. Maybe it is tied into the library, like kind of the petting zoo sort of stuff, or like programs that way, where it's not necessarily a week-long sort of deal, but things that just events that parents can kind of like one off at a time, bring a couple kids to kind of deal through the break up the summer day sort of thing would be something that might be another thing to look at as well. The curious creature type stuff, things like that. I think it's absolutely really, given what we went through previously, I think it's very important to start things off and do things the right way. And Rob, I get confidence that that's exactly what you're doing, and not rushing something in place. I think it's, important to do things the right way and understand that we have things properly staffed and set up the right way, and we're working with the right vendors, and we have everything set up that needs to be set up and taken care of. That sort of deal. So, whatever we can do to support, please let us know. That basketball group that I did email, they're gonna be, they're folks that you can certainly tap into for sure. I'm involved with Lunenburg Youth Soccer as well. So if we can, if there are things that we can figure out, to tap into, by all means, don't hesitate to ask, and see what we can do.
Yep, absolutely. All right, let's do the topic that I thought was going to take forever, and hopefully it's not. All right, so WOLA. As you all know, a couple of weeks ago, they came in and they did a presentation of two different options. And they had taken our feedback from the previous meetings, as well as feedback from the community at the previous meetings, and they had made some changes. So I have had a conversation with her earlier this week, sort of trying to get a better understanding of the timeline, what she needed from us after this evening's meeting, and things like that. So let me hit the timeline first, because I know that Dave had a question about this as well this past week. So she wants us, I told her that I would get her the information from tonight's meeting sometime tomorrow. She would use that to fine tune any small things that need to be fine tuned in whatever our preference is for the options. And she would be putting together a price tag. She'd be meeting with town manager. At this point, that meeting is scheduled for April 11th, and she would meet with us as a full committee. She's recommending that same week. If we can make it work, great. If we can't, maybe early the following week. And then she would be pretty much done. Her contract with us is up on May 1st. So that's where we are. We have two more things that she would be doing, two more meetings, one with town manager, one with the Parks Commission. And then we'd be getting from her the cost estimates. She's going to be sending over some grant opportunities that she thought might be of interest to the town. So that's sort of where the timeline is leading us to get to the completion of this project. So she is looking for us tonight to, as a commission, give her the recommendation on what our preferred option is, to include any comments, anything from just any general comments that we want, or if there's something that we like one option and we definitely want something included or something removed, she wants that, so that all of that can be incorporated. Did that make sense to everybody? And I'm going to screen share. I'm going to put up the options. If I can find it. There we are. Bear with me one second. Chris, you're out of sorts tonight. You don't have the office background. Oh no, Parks and Rec background. I'm used to you having the Parks and Rec background.
I know, I'm on my work computer. I haven't put it on my work computer. It was the first computer I could grab when I came in the door.
Okay. All right, can everybody see that? I'm sure you have copies of it at home as well. So again, this is alternative 1 that they had come up with, and this was alternative 2. At the last meeting, I think the general consensus was that I think we liked alternative 1 the best. Was that my takeaway?
I appreciate, I think a lot of us were on that kind of, we like to blend both thing, which isn't helpful at all. I like the Chestnut Street parking on option 2. But I appreciated the field orientations and so forth on option 1, given the comment that they had that was kind of the Major League Baseball kind of guideline and the direction that that's facing. That's what Major League Baseball tends to use. I thought that was kind of interesting and kind of tied in fine in terms of all the discussion around sun and shadows and all that kind of deal. And I know there was kind of that discussion of, is there a means of twisting things slightly to still slide a, slide a, the T-ball field in there. But I think the parking in option 2 for the Chestnut Street side, I like the one-way in, like the one-way in and out sort of deal, and not dealing with cars pulling into the parking lot from both directions and everything. I definitely feel the need for the basketball court there. I wouldn't want to see that lost. That's my take.
Yep, yep. So if we said to you right now, which one of these options would you be choosing? Which would it be?
Without making changes to either,
Yeah,
like if we were to make no changes to either drawing, I would go with one. Because I think the parking on the Mass Ave side I like better too. Like where it's, I think that's the parking lot. You kind of come in one way and you can loop out the other, right?
yep. Yep, it is.
There is one big difference that between the two designs, which is how the pavilion is set up,
Mhm.
and on 1 and 2, that I was actually really curious to see if Rob had any feedback on it. As you know, because in alternative 1, the pavilion, the playground, and the lawn are all in one area. And while that's a good thing, sometimes that can be I don't have the experience of running programs, youth programs. So I don't know if it's better for the pavilion to be in a separate area or to be in the same area.
So if you remember at the last meeting, one of the comments that I had made to Catherine was whether or not, so on that alternative 2, that pavilion, the white box, is behind the pickleball courts. And I would have liked to have seen them flipped. And I believe that her answer was yes, that it could be flipped, so that concession pavilion area would be facing the playground area.
Right. Well, yes. So what I was thinking is like on alternative 1, the pavilion, which is where the bathrooms are going to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're running a program, you'd want it right next to the lawn, which is pretty much the only open space we would have to do anything. And that's where I was hoping Rob might be able to give us the feedback. Is it better to have the facilities next to where you're going to be doing the program, or is it better to be in a separate area?
Well, my opinion would be to have a larger area. It would, the locations of the bathroom are kind of arbitrary. Just to have bathrooms are, obviously the bigger of the options to have. You don't necessarily, I wouldn't suggest, having to alter too much just to have A or B, but I think alternative 2 has the best options in terms of space for program utilization.
Okay.
But that wouldn't, disclude us from using the actual fields. There's plenty of field space, so I wouldn't want to interject in terms of how a design would lay out just because of open
Right,
space.
but the pavilion, so the pavilion is also where the, what we call a snack shack would be. So, and I don't know how much you'd be utilizing of that, but the other thing about on alternative 2, Rob, that you say that's the best, if during the summer there is any ongoing games, it'll be harder to, like baseball field, Little League, sometimes they have the MVP, I don't know, they have a different name for the league, but summer league, you'd have more kids mixing by having the pavilion there, right in the middle of the baseball fields, versus alternative one is a little more secluded. I don't know. I'm asking, these are the questions that were in my mind as regarding like utilization for the field for these facilities that would be outside just baseball.
Yeah,
So-
if those are the problems we're running into, those would be some great problems for Marshall Park. You know, just based off of the layout right now, it's very difficult for anybody with children to even come there and, you know, expect to play with kids that we could potentially have to use the bathroom. So any idea obviously would be greater than what we have. That's when if it does come to fruition. But you know, my suggestion would be, I have a special needs child, and she adores all that, you know, I don't want to say linear, but she likes things that are sensory type of parks. So, you know, with a lot going on, she would like, you know, I could imagine just being in the action. But regardless of whatever plan, I could not give too much input because of just the spacing alone. There's not much you can do with the park, but I think either idea is really a step in the right direction. So, but my opinion would be alternative one, just for parking purposes. Even though the pavilion and everything are kind of clustered, I still think it would be, you know, you could utilize it in many different ways, and it doesn't necessarily, even if it conflicted with times, you could still run sort of programming within, you know, I couldn't say they could get concessions, but to utilize restroom facilities, you could still run programming.
So Pat or Dave, does anybody wanna?
Yeah, could I chime in next if you don't mind?
Yeah.
Okay, of these two, not that I'm convinced that this is what we should do to the park, but of these two designs, number one is my preference. I agree with Chris, the basketball courts are highly important, and I think next to the pickleball courts, they fit in there nicely. I had asked them to reduce the pickleball courts by one, just because I thought it was taking up too much space, and I think it fits better the way they've got it configured there. The pavilion, I think in plan one, serviceability wise, you've got access directly from the parking lot. Whereas you don't with the plan two, you're in the middle of all the home plates and so on and so forth. So distance to a parking area or a vehicle is excessive as far as I'm concerned. I have a long-term concern if we're talking about a concession stand there. I think we have to have a full discussion about that sometime down the road, because there are many ramifications that we need to work through as a commission. And I won't get tied up on that tonight. Karen, if you could slide it down just a little bit, the dog park area, the other way, I'm sorry, up. The dog park area, I'm a little concerned. I was out there the other day as to how I would assume, now I'm making an assumption here, that if you create a dog park, it still needs to be ADA accessible for the general public with their dogs. You've got a severe elevation drop from the 90-foot diamond level down to what's presently the basketball courts. So I want to make sure that they've got that figured in somehow. And you've got that trail that ultimately connects out to Marshall Pond. That's going to be on a pretty substantial grade going down through there. I can't imagine they can go straight through there the way they have it shown, and have a pitch that's acceptable. The other thing that I would love to see is to add one more woods trail on plan one that branches off of this existing trail right at what I'll describe as the back end of the dog park, which is presently the basketball court. Yeah, if you go up with the arrow just a little more to the trail itself, have it loop around the backside of the dog park. Nope, the other way. I'm sorry. Come down around the dog park from that point you were originally at. Get closer to the dog park and wrap right up tight against it.
There?
Okay. Yep. And then, yep, keep moving towards what's the stone wall there. Okay, and then right about there, parallel the stone wall, or you'd have to adjust it to see how far you could get it away from the other trail. But then continue it towards Powell Field, down that way, and then stop short of Powell Field. Okay, then head towards Marshall Pond. That would give you another trail that connects into the trail that they're showing on there and give you a secondary loop option for hiking in, and then a secondary loop out. And that cross of the wetlands, about where the arrow is now, or maybe a little bit back towards the 90-foot diamond, would be that area where we saw the plank bridges when we went out there to look at Marshall Park a year ago. So with bog bridges or something like that, we could easily cross that. So I'm just looking for an additional loop in there on the Woods Trail.
I'd agree with that, Dave. I think that'd be great if they can further even hug around that ball field and connect even further down, like where the kid on the bike is, and get it down that far.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, something there
The bigger the loop you can have, the better. you
right.
know?
The
Or maybe a
problem
cross
is-
loop in the middle there, like kind of behind the pickleball courts is a cross loop, and then they kind of swing the third kind of section down or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And trail, that type of trail construction, I don't believe is super expensive per square foot compared to totally resetting a ball field. What was I going to say? The other challenge that you run into, and I don't know if you've been over there at all, Chris, in the last 6 months, but there is 3 times as much water in that wooded area right now than there was when we were there the last time.
Oh, it'll rain.
Right.
Hey guys, can I chirp in for a second? I have to go out on a run, so
Yeah,
I'm going to.
Dad, Pat.
Pat?
He may have to have left like immediately.
I could have said jump in, or he had to jump out.
I think he said jump out.
Okay, well, if he comes back, hopefully he'll just know enough to chime in. So I want to throw you guys a
Yeah, he did
curveball.
drop off. Yeah, he dropped off.
I want to throw you guys a curveball, a thought, a process. So Dave, I share the same concern with you about the ADA of the dog park. So the same concern is going to come up with my next thought. I like, excuse me, I like the parking of option 1. I actually like both sets of parking. I would be foreseeing the parking on Chestnut to be one way in and one way out, not a 2-way in and out. I like that idea that the alternative 2, that parking makes me nervous that we're gonna get cars that pull in and can't, it's not gonna be easy to get out, and I don't like the idea of backing up with kids, too much backing up with kids in the area. So where right now, one of the things thinking about on alternative 1, where that pickleball and basketball court is on the diagram, that I believe right now is our little league field, is our t-ball field. If we were to go with an option like this, we could leave that area undisturbed, or leave it t-ball if we wanted to. Or we could, over the course, I don't know how long it would take us to execute this, if we even get it executed with funding, would be to trial their program at another one of our fields, and then be able to utilize that feedback on whether or not that's sustainable for them. If it is sustainable for them, we could come in and we could put in the pickleball fields, the pickleball courts and the basketball court. But my next thought here is that this is a small dog park, and I completely understand that area. And I understand why they would be recommending that in that area. I have to wonder though, if we were to leave the T-ball field here and that dog park area was ADA compliant, could we get away with, even if it was a single basketball court and 1 or 2 pickleball courts down where the dog park is? And that's where our current basketball court is. I don't love it because it's down in the woods and it's not easily visible. But maybe once it's opened up, if we were to open up this 90-foot diamond and have that walking path and have a trail system, you know, would it open it up enough that we could, you know, be comfortable putting something down there? You know, I don't know. So that was just sort of my off the top of my head thought, that there could be some options within alternative 1 that we could do. And I suppose the same could be said for alternative 2. But if we, you know, again, gave it a whirl of having T-ball at another location, see if it works before you remove the fields, then put in pickleball and basketball, you know, that's an option. I think this option, in talking with her and talking to her about sort of phasing it in, not fully understanding what the total price tag of this is going to be or how we're getting this money for it. You know, her thought was that a lot of the groundwork would need to be done over in the field area. You know, so doing something with alternative 1 might allow the fields to be done at the same time, then might allow for the playground the playground and the pavilion area to be done at the same time. That seems like it's possible that could be pieced together better than alternative 2. And I also like the fact that I like the layout of the fields in alternative 1 because they have those outfields are, if they ever needed to connect, we could have them connect. You know, if suddenly baseball, softball just doesn't have a program anymore, you know, down the road, it just seems like it might be something easy to remove that fencing to create a larger single field. You know, not that I foresee baseball or softball going anywhere, but you know, yeah, I suppose you never know. So do we want to?
I could support what you're saying there, Karen.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
There was I mean, the folks that were at the meeting previously, I mean, it seemed like there was an opinion that 3 pickleball courts was the right number. There was a little kind of pushback when, you know, I said 2. You know, and I do see it becoming like that is one of those activities that is growing. I know it's kind of viewed as a, you know, a semi-retired kind of sport right now, but like I have friends in town that are like, oh, like we got together and they're like, oh, we're in a pickleball league now, you know, 40, 45 years old. Yeah, you know, I mean, so it's it is something that does seem to be growing right now. So I'd hate to lose. Like, I think if we could take the 3 pickleball courts and the basketball court and swing that up, and that is one basketball court. It's not more than one court there. It's just one court. But if there's, I don't know the size parameters of a pickleball court. I don't know what it looks like, but there's, you know, there's big, you know, there's a fair amount of space up there where the existing basketball / tennis court type area is. It's a fair bit of space. You know, if you look at the basketball court at the high school, it's not a significant, you know, plot of land there. So I think there's plenty of room in that fenced in area that exists up there if they can get the ADA compliance in there to probably drop 3 pickleball courts and a basketball court. Like, it would be important to maybe test the T-ball scenario. I like what you're saying with that. The only thing I'd say with that regard would be, I think it would be important maybe to find a plot of land in town where we maybe could put a dog park. And that's another project for another time per se. I do think the dog park somewhere adds some value. I know we can all walk our dogs on trails, and I know we can take dogs in the woods, and that's where they can run around in our yards and so forth. But I think I think we'd be doing a service to folks that maybe can't get access to trails, or it's not safe for them to walk on trails. For whatever reason, if it's mobility or what have you, but still a spot where they could take dogs and exercise.
And I
their-
agree
their
with you.
animals and so forth. So
I do agree with you. When I look at the dog park, because it's not very big, I have to wonder if there would be, if we were to build one at some point, if there would be a better spot for it, because it would be a larger area instead of putting in something small and then regretting it because it is small.
yeah, we could figure out a
So-
spot where it could go, then I would support moving it to another location. I mean, like there's pluses and minuses for it being here, right? I mean, so I think there's that plus where folks can come watch a ball game and bring their dog and kind of exercise their dog and check out a game for a little while with their dog on a leash in the rest of the park and so forth. But I think is also, as we look at the overall plan of Marshall Park, and now we're talking about bringing a lot more activity here, hopefully, we're talking about also bringing maybe more dogs to the park. And is that a different liability issue as well, or maybe better suited to say just individual plot of land, here's a dog park, and it's not a destination for folks that don't have, some people aren't dog people, and so is it better to say, here's a separate spot, and if you have a dog, you can bring your dog to this dog park, as opposed to coming to Marshall Park and you're not a dog person and you got to deal with 20 dogs in the dog park.
So I'm gonna speak in favor of the dog park where it is. I see somewhat anecdotal data because I'm just looking outside my window, but there are a lot of folks that uses the only piece of continuous sidewalk around town that we have, which is the town center, and they walk to Marshall Park, and they walk around, and it's quite a few, and it's not the type of dog that necessarily that you would take it to a trail. It's really kind of like using the sidewalk and the ability to walk somewhere, giving them a space, a designation, destination to go to. It kind of help. I mean, Marshall Park, it is like if you go there during the day, especially in the morning, in late mornings, there are dogs there. So it's in terms of operations, I always think, match what you do with how you want to do things. And the dog park is exactly one of the things. There are dogs that visit Marshall Park. It is used for that. It's a continuation of our sidewalks, which, like Chris, you said, people that don't necessarily go to a trail, they're using the ability to maybe park at the senior center or do something, use other town available assets, if you will, like a parking lot, and go for a walk using a sidewalk and stopping by the dog park. Interesting that it is a small dog park. I actually think that's preferable, because if you have a Saint Bernard, you're not going to take a tiny little park, or a English sheepdog. You're not going to take to a little park because it'll be too small for them. More likely, if you have a big dog, you are someone who can handle a big dog and can handle going out on the trail. But if you look at the folks that are walking on our sidewalks with dogs, they're mostly, people that are not getting on the trail and prefer to walk on the sidewalk, and it'll be nice for them to have a small dog park. You have large dog parks, you're gonna have much larger dogs and much more of a destination. Similarly to how we used to think about skate park. If we have a very large skate park, it will become a destination, and we want to mostly think about servicing the town folks. And dog park will be just like that. In Medford, there was at the Fells, there was a big field that was considered dog park. It was allowed, and there would be hundreds and hundreds of dogs there. And if you had a little dog, you would not go there. And you still, folks with little dogs that lived in an apartment or small houses did not have a destination to go. So having a dog park that is small, with more accessible sidewalk, it is a service to.
I don't disagree. I'm not even disagreeing with you on, I won't disagree on the need of a dog park, and the case for a smaller dog park does make some sense. I guess my question to you is that if the preference is for alternative one, as is, let's just say as is, and we started doing work in there, and the pickleball and basketball courts couldn't be put in because it was determined that T-ball really needed to stay in that location because everything they've tried didn't work. Then, what would be the preference? Would your preference be a dog park or a basketball and pickleball court?
So, when we were in the meeting, Catherine said that if you look in alternative 2 next to the skate park,
Yep.
she has a pollinator garden, and someone brought up, can the basketball court go in that location, which would actually clear off, like keep the vision from the street onto the skate park. And people also mentioned it might be good for basketball. So the basketball right there, that space is a location to have the basketball courts. So if we're talking about alternative 1 with no modifications, I would say the modification would be maybe we just leave the small baseball field, the T-ball field there. And I don't know, I think the T-ball field, it's doable in a different field in our town. That is the most, literally like the new school park, which it looks like we are going to proceed with it. We have the space for it. Fitzgerald, we have the space for it. But we can also think about adding the basketball court next to skate park as an alternative.
I like that pollinator garden that's there. I mean, so here's the alternative I guess I would think about. So if we're talking, kind of spinning off what you're talking about, Karen, experiment with the T-ball, consider moving the pickleball and basketball courts up to where the dog park is, and assuming the T-ball field worked, drop the dog park where the T-ball field is. They're roughly, I mean, look on the map, they're roughly the same where the T-ball field is on option 2.
And what do you?
So looking at option 1, swinging the 3 pickleball courts and the basketball court up to the dog park. Leave the T-ball field in its existing location, as shown in option 2. Test the parameters that you're talking about. Can T-ball work in another location? And if it does, it's a similar location setup or something that we would use for a dog park anyway.
Here's like.
And you're moving the dog park away from the neighbors that are right against their house up at the top. We heard a couple folks that abut that area with their dogs and so forth. You're moving it away from that, moving it down, kind of.
Like
a little more, maybe a little more isolated at that end if it's at the southern end of Marshall. I don't know.
We have had a basketball court around the location where dog park is, and that has failed. It's not visible.
It clearly wasn't taken care of. I mean,
right. It was not used. It
was not used because it was not maintained. That didn't fail because it wouldn't have been used. It failed because we didn't bother to maintain it for the last 2 decades. The kids are down there using it now.
Yeah, every time I go down there, there's new skateboard activity. Amy walked through there a couple weeks ago. She goes, "Didn't you guys take the trash out of? There's like new trash down there. There's new. I mean, it's."
I like how the activities. One thing by moving some of these things away from the center of the park, we are kind of taking away part of what the design was. Like a lot of the design that they put together has like, the park has a center focus of where the playground is, all the activities go. The dog park is really like an activity that happens. I'm telling you, it happens in the morning. You go to Marshall Park, and Chris, you live next door. If you go there in the morning, you're gonna see a lot of dogs in Marshall Park.
Sure.
It's a good location for that. I'm not as concerned about the neighbors because I think, you know, if it's fenced and the dog park will be fenced as well. And we're really going to be talking about small dogs. But I like how the basketball court and the pickleball courts are within the center of the park. That's how you maintain, you know, things going on. I don't know. I think start putting moving the courts out of the downtown of the park. It's really working against what the design is.
I don't disagree. I guess maybe I'm just trying to make everybody happy.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I think if for now we leave, like, let's just think of this way, like last phase will be to build the pickleball and the basketball court. And we'll only do that when the T-ball field has found a home, end of it. Like everything else can happen with the one rectangle piece of it, of the design.
If you guys are all right with it, Chris Begley has his hand up. I'd like to allow him to give some feedback. Chris?
Sure. Hold on one second. There we go. How you doing, guys?
Good, how are
For you. Thanks for joining.
Just fine, thanks. I'm speaking on behalf of myself, not on top of the board, even though I sit on the board for Little League. So these are coming from my point of view and not the board's. I just want to put that out front. When this whole process started, several members of the board said, we're not going to bulldoze the field. Well, if we go to alternative one, we're bulldozing a field, which kind of stinks. So I really going to advocate for the T-ball field to stay up at Marshall Park. And if we ever had to move it to another location, it would have to be a fenced-in area like it is now, because it's a safety concern with those kids. I mean, they're 4 and 5 years old. And even you guys were talking about the instructional program earlier down at Fitzgerald. I'm not sure how many people remember, but there were maybe about 5 years ago, someone got hit by a car. And that was an instructional kid who was a little older than somebody that plays T-ball. So if we're going to put the T-ball field somewhere else, we need to have a place where it can be fenced in. And if we put a fenced in place like we have now down at Fitzgerald, we're cutting off the fields that are already down there. And then we're also worried about parking. If you put 3 programs down at Fitzgerald playing at the same time, A, you're going to lose space, and B, parking as it is already, people probably know, is a nightmare down there. And then if we're going to add a 3rd field down there, that's going to be just terrible.
I'm not looking to add a 3rd field down at Fitzgerald's. I don't know if you caught my comment at the last meeting. Would like to try to figure out a way to be able to tie the T-ball field into what's already down there. In my opinion, and this is my opinion, is that is one of the most underutilized fields that we have. And yes, I understand that you have programs that are over there, the Little League does, and they use it. But there's a lot of times that I drive by and there's not a ton of action down there. And, you know, I'm also curious to know, and you may not know this, is what other towns do for their T-ball field, because it's been years, but since we've been involved in baseball, but when we were involved in baseball, I don't remember ever seeing a T-ball field that was set up like ours. I'm not disagreeing that ours isn't a good setup. It is a good setup with the fenced in area. You know, so it's hard for me to look at it and be like, oh, we've got to keep this and we've got to keep it completely closed in. I don't know.
I mean, I would invite any of you guys to come down when the T-ball season starts next month, just to see what it's like down there. I mean, those are kids we all remember our 4 and 5 year olds. it's a squirrel, and they're, you know,
Oh,
their heads are
absolutely.
turning.
Yeah, I'm with it. My kids played T-ball. Well, my daughter played T-ball. I mean, I remember it. You know, and I equate it to, so she didn't stick with it. My son never picked it up. But I equate it to beehive soccer, right? I mean, so
Yeah.
I don't want, I know I safety of utmost concern for sure, right? And so instructional, but I'm not aware of the incident that you're saying happened with the instructional baseball scenario. Where the field is versus where the cars are, it's like clearly that player wasn't on the field, you know, or
No,
near
but
the
he was,
field when they were hit and so forth. And so you know, obviously with the folks need to keep an eye on, you know, kids and be mindful where they are and so forth. I mean, again, I come back to soccer, beehive soccer, and the kids are running over and you're trying to contain them stay inside the white lines. You know,
Right.
just keep them in the white lines. And there's no fence around the field, and you have to be mindful of where kids are running off to and what parents are doing and guardians are doing and where their kids are going and so forth. Again, I don't know the circumstance of the incident you're talking of. It sounds obviously not a good idea, not a good scenario, not a good situation. And so that certainly would be something that we'd have to take into account for sure. And that would, I think in part would go along the lines of what Karen's talking about, or not adding a third field down there, not adding to traffic congestion that would be over there. And looking at, you know, taking a look at that area as well. It's certainly a park that can use some love. You know, and can we figure out parking scenarios over there? My daughter did the instructional over that way. So, I mean, I remember the parking over that way as well. So it's, you know, can we figure that piece out to make that a little bit safer and a little less congested, or how do we kind of operate that over that way? I think a lot of this is going to go hand in hand as we look at the option where things go. You know, we need to look at the big picture and figure that out. But yeah, it's I mean, that's kind of, I hear what you're saying, the fenced in area and so forth and whatnot. And
right, but I think,
tough. Yeah.
I don't remember who it was. It might have been you, Chris, or it might have been Dave. When this whole thing started, there was rumors out there, and somebody said, I can't remember who it says, like, we're not going to bulldoze a field. Well, if we go to option one, we're bulldozing a field.
Bulldozing 2 fields.
Well, right, but we're getting rid of one. You know, we're going to get rid of the T-ball field if we go to option one.
You know, Chris, like, I think one thing that, like, I think we are missing on, okay, so, well, let me take a step back. And I'm going to say something I said in the last meeting, and I think I was addressing Ben Proctor, which is, you know, if this baseball complex was down in Fitchburg, Fitzgerald, we wouldn't be talking about necessarily doing all the renovations we're trying to talk about it now. And it's just Marshall Park, because of its location and the people that it can serve and how it can serve, is of greater interest beyond just, you know, the baseball community. So we are trying to figure out how we can serve more than just one community here. And the location makes sense to me. So, you know, one thing we have talked about it, and Karen we have had different scenarios here is, you know, we go into doing this phase after we have a place for T-ball. So, you know, what I said, you know, just before you started speaking was, let's not, maybe this is the final design, but maybe before we get to the final design is the T-ball field where the basketball courts and pickleballs are, and because mostly that would need a flat space that can then be developed further to get to this final design until we can actually get to the, you know, when we have a T-ball field safe somewhere else. Like there are things that we are trying to accomplish. The town does not have a basketball court up in the town center or pickleball that we can serve more people. So what is the solution for that? Just telling me that we are not going to, you know, bulldoze a field, it's not a solution to the other problems. It's just saying no. So I'm trying to come up with a solution to what we're trying to do. And one idea that I had was we keep the T-ball field on that area until the T-ball can be relocated somewhere else. And then the last phase of the project is to develop the basketball and the pickleball. Why would you object to that?
I'm not objecting to it, but I thought that the plan was for you guys to vote tonight to say, this is the plan, we're gonna pick one or two and then get cost estimates. But
Right,
then
so
isn't
it
the
is.
cost estimate, but if you're gonna get cost estimates for having the pickleball and the basketball courts where you have in option one,
Mhm.
but then you'd be like, oh, we're not gonna put them there. So the
No,
cost estimates are gonna be off.
No, that's not
If
what
we
I'm
can't
saying.
find, no, if we can't find another home for T-ball.
No, there are phases, there are projects that can be done into phases. And so, for example, phase 1, 2, and 3, we have talked about this in different meetings. So the last phase, so within the phase 2 or 3, it can be to level off that area and have the T-ball field there, if it has not been relocated somewhere else at the time, because that would be a different project.
Mhm.
And if that is still not developed, then you see, creating a flat space with a fence around would be the T-ball field that can then be utilized for the final design. So we can say, this is the design we want, alternative 1, but the last piece is going to be the last phase of the project.
Okay, I mean, I understand that we want to add other things. I'm all for adding other things, pickleball courts. I mean, I played pickleball, so I picked it up. I've learned how to play with my son. And I know Chris sort of objected to on plan 2, where that pollinator garden was, where they said, oh, we could just put the basketball court where that one pollinator garden was in front, yeah, right there. And still, you have everything. With that, you have everything.
Right.
I mean,
But
we also seem hung up a little bit on the parking, which I get. I parked down at Marshall Park and I parked on Chestnut Street. I get it. It's a nightmare.
Well,
But
one
I
thing
think-
about alternative 2 is the position of the fields was not the preferred. Alternative 1 is the preferred. Isn't that the preferred?
I believe that's what they said, yes. I
Yes.
can't remember from the consultant that was on the Zoom said. But then I had asked the question, and did we ever get an answer? Could we flip the fields in alternative 2 like they are in alternative 1, the softball and the 90-foot diamond? And just do that for option, an alternative 2. And did we ever get an answer on that?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand. Can you repeat? Like,
Yeah,
All right,
I'll
you know
try
how
to show it to you on my, so see how alternative 1, Anna, the home plate is here at the bottom left.
yeah,
The question was if we could take alternative 2 and take home plate and move it over here so that it would be going the same direction as alternative 1.
oh,
My
okay, I
understanding
see it.
that's correct, right, Chris Begley?
Right, yeah. I mean, why can't you just use the 90-foot diamonds and the softball diamond that you have in alternative 1 and just put those on alternative 2?
We can.
Because the field dimensions are going to be the same.
The
Right.
angle as they arch out, I don't think fit. I seem to remember, Kathy. I mean, we can put that on the list. Put it on
I
the
need
list
to go
so they
back
can
to
give us
her.
a yea or nay.
I need to go back to her with something. So.
Yeah.
All right.
Karen, I'd like to get an explanation from Chris where he's ultimately or intimately involved with the baseball program. And I've always, right from the beginning, had a problem understanding why, and maybe he can educate me as to why.
I'll try my best.
From a family point of view with 3 children, okay, let's say the youngest one is T-ball age.
Yep.
And the next 2 are 1.5 to 2 years apart, older.
Yep.
When that youngest child is T-ball age, where are those, assuming all 3 are in the baseball program, where are those other 2 kids in that family in the age range as you're set up right now?
Well, it's going to obviously depend on the age range of the kids. I mean, the younger
Well,
kids.
I'm talking about start with T-ball range as the youngest child. then add a year and a half to the next child and another year and a half, so 3 years on top of the third child. Or put them 3 years apart, whatever you want to space them out. I'm just trying to see if a family with 3 kids.
I can answer it because I had this situation.
Okay,
I can too. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Karen.
yeah, because his kids are similar ages to mine. So when my girls were playing T-ball, Ryan was playing instructional at Fitzgerald. And then when they rotated up in age, if our older son had played, he would have been over at McNally, but he wasn't. And then when the next rotation came, our older son moved to McNally and our youngest daughter she moved over to Fitzgerald. So they hopped, and my kids were never at Marshall Park at the same time because of their age differences with T-ball and softball.
okay, so that pretty much tells me what my logical brain tells me, at least for a 2 or 3 year period. That family's gonna, if you were to put the T-ball field down at Fitzgerald, and I'm not saying we're doing it, I said if you do, then doesn't that put that entire family down on Reservoir Road for at least 3, maybe 4 years and not split between 2 parks? Yes, as they make the transition, they're gonna split. But the initial is, I'm thinking, and tell me if I'm wrong, 3 years, maybe a little more, that all 3 children are at that same complex.
And theoretically, that's possible, but there would be no way to play instructional baseball, T-ball, and softball all at the same time. So you could only play 2 games. You could only have baseball and softball going at the same time. You couldn't put in T-ball, couldn't be playing the same time as instructional.
Right, so with just 2 fields down there, it would change the scheduling of it, so they may not all be down there, and I think that McNally, not that it's not a problem. I hate when people, I'm always afraid people are gonna take what I'm saying out of context. So if the minor league field and the instructional field and the T-ball field were all at the same location, they'd all stay there. They'd be there for a number of years, but because of just the way that, only having 2 fields over at Fitzgerald, a single field over at McNally, and softball instructional is, I don't know if minors is still played at Fitzgerald, but they move over to the Marshall. So there's a lot of different dynamics to it. So yes, it's possible, Dave, that some families could spend a couple of years at Fitzgerald. It's also possible that even with kids close in age, they don't spend more than a season at a time down there just because of softball versus baseball versus minors versus majors, and there's just a lot of things that come into play.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And then I know Karen mentioned about sometimes she goes by the parks and they're not being used. We don't play on the weekends, and we've always purposely said we're not going to play on the weekends because those kids also want to play soccer. So how many of those kids play soccer? I can't answer that question, but we leave that open to the parents. Like if their kids want to play T-ball and then they want to go play soccer on the weekends. So that's why we don't play on the weekends.
Just which age groups don't play on the weekends for Little League now?
Everything but majors. Majors will play maybe once in a while on the weekends and have a practice, but pretty much everything else, we don't play on the weekends because we want those kids, if they want to do another sport,
to be able to play. No, it makes sense. It does.
So that's why we only use the fields Monday through Friday.
So can we put a football program on a Sunday? Yeah, Dave.
Yeah, one more thing on option 1, and just on the list, just an ask to Catherine. Is it possible, if we were going to repurpose what's presently the dog park, is it possible to put it over on the other side of the 90-foot diamond and take up part of the pollinator area?
Why?
On option 1?
Who's asking what? Who's asking what?
I asked why.
If down the road, we want to go through a scenario where we want to repurpose that space for something other than a dog park. Will the dog park fit on the other side of the 90-foot diamond in the pollinator area without
Oh.
issues?
So you were asking to see if it will fit there? So for future reference, or would you like it there now?
We don't need to move it now, but this plan is not set in stone once we complete it.
I know, I'm trying to understand your question, like. would
Well,
you-
in the scenario we were talking about before, if we need to keep the T-ball field long-term where it is, and we still want to put pickleball and basketball somewhere, then our best space big enough for that is where the dog park is. Okay, if we were to make that move, can we put the dog park where the pollinator area is? That's all I'm asking.
Okay, now I understand your question.
Thank you.
So listening to everything that we're saying, we're back at a blend of both. Yeah, so nothing's changed. I am I like the parking and
Fence on this comment right now, Chris? Are you
What's
are
that?
you about to go right down the fence line on this in both directions?
more or less, yeah. Like, can we? Well, is it workable? I
helping
guess
me.
it's the question to her, right? So hearing what Chris is saying and what everyone is kind of talking about here, like, so field orientation. Can we look at alternative 2, but use the parking and field orientation from alternative 1?
We can't.
We cannot.
Nope. Because if you look at the, even if they were able to turn that, the 90-foot diamond so that the home plate's now on the left, it's
Yep.
still going to utilize this same footage. So up on alternative 1, the reason that they're able to get parking there is because this whole area is sort of shifted a little bit towards the road. It's why the parking is shorter and shorter in length coming into the park. Whereas when you go down here, you can see that the parking extends up and rides along the side. So I do not believe, and this was again asking, talking to her earlier the week, that we could take a parking similar to this and put it over here, or a parking similar, like the 2-way in and, one way in, one way out type situation, and put it over here. I will be honest with you guys, I am absolutely hung up on parking. I will not deny that. We are really, really good in this town at building buildings with the worst parking situations ever. And, I look at this and the parking really appeals to me because, again, it's, one way in, one way out. You have parking along Chestnut, hopefully to alleviate some of this. You have, one way in here, probably some parking along the road, into the lot, and the exit out. Parking lots and kids make me extremely nervous. The town beach terrifies me because people are pulling in and pulling out. To me, I look at this and I say, the parking situation alone, I like. The only thing that could make it better for me, honestly, is if this parking lot could somehow connect into this parking lot.
No, that would be a nightmare for
I
the
know, but it
neighbors.
would be, the Chestnut Street would be hopefully relieved if that happens.
No, you don't want to do that.
I'm just
Can I
saying.
add a comment? I've talked to a number of residents that live on Chestnut Street, and they would be very unhappy if that were put in. They didn't say they'd fight it tooth and nail, but they're not in support of drive-through.
Yeah, that would
Step away
not.
for just a minute.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
problem is that it's a double-edged sword then, because they don't want to support a drive-through, but at the same time, they're going to complain about parking on Chestnut Street. And if there's not, we know this to be fact because we have lived it now for the last 6 years. If there isn't an easy way for them to get to this side of Chestnut, and this is most likely where everybody's gonna go in, if for the 90-foot diamond is off of Chestnut, they will not drive around because it's not easy, it's not convenient. So, I mean, maybe we'll always have those, but I'm not getting it anyway because
Let's not go down that rabbit hole.
not an option.
Okay, so, okay. What I hear is alternative okay, I'm gonna give a summary of what I hear. Alternative 1 with a 90-foot diamond field positioned as alternative 2. And as part of the phase project, that where basketball and pickleball courts are to be leveled initially, or until we have the T-ball field built elsewhere, that will be the T-ball designated area. And
No.
once, why?
No, because you just said alternative 1 with the field layout of alternative 2.
Well, I thought you said
No, that was if Chris's question was whether or not
I want to take the field orientation from alternative 1 and put it
No.
on alternative.
Karen, I thought
I
you
want
said
the
that
parking and the field orientation from
Right.
alternative 1 on alternative 2.
Okay,
if it was
but
feasible.
Karen, you had said that Catherine had entertained the idea of moving an alternative 1, moving the home plate to an alternative 1, flipping the field of the 90-foot diamond to that corner where it is on alternative 2.
no.
I thought you said that.
No, what I was just saying when Chris Begley was on was that what I was trying to explain was whether or not and on alternative 2 that 90-foot diamonds could be switched, could be flipped. And he had asked that at the
I know, and
the-
I thought Catherine said that that's a possibility, like,
I didn't
There wasn't a
think
clear
so.
answer on it. There
So
wasn't a
go
clear
with that.
answer. Yeah,
Because-
they really didn't give an answer on that yet. I think that was Chris's point, where they didn't really, they didn't give we haven't gotten a clear answer on if that is feasible, which is, that's why I was kind of asking the question was,
right.
so if I'm taking everything that everybody's saying tonight, can we take, like if we look at each individual, like if we ran a list, right? We take each individual item that's on this list, between the two drawings and say, so if we say parking, do we like parking on option 1 better or option 2 better? We like the parking on option 1 better. Do we like the field orientations on option 1 or option 2 better as far as the major fields, right? So the 90-foot diamond and the softball field, we like the orientations on option 1 better. Do we prefer the location of the pavilion, where it is on option 1 or option 2 better? I think Rob was indicating, the fact that it abuts the lawn and the playground in option 1 is nice. And some of that might be able to be alleviated with what Karen was talking about, where you switch in option 2, you move the pavilion and the pickleball courts, and then the pavilion abuts the playground and the green space kind of deal.
Mhm.
We like the T-ball field,
Well, so
like
it's
the basketball
interesting.
court in option 1. So now, can we, is
Well-
there a
well,
means of adjusting
Right.
things a little bit?
So alternative 2 for where the T-ball is, okay? It is the space that we need for the pickleball and the basketball court.
Well, no, if on option 2, it has the pickleball court here. So it would be
Just
the
no
space
basketball
we need
court.
for basketball, if we wanted to put it.
But the area where the T-ball is, I don't know, I just, I don't, or, honestly, with exception of parking, I like alternative 2 with using the pollinator garden, which I love pollinator gardens. That's what hope my lawn will turn into, use that space for the basketball court.
And there's potentially space for other pollinator gardens in there, and there is one on
There
the
is a
north side of the,
second one.
there's one on the north
Yeah.
side of the property. I'm sure there's means
Yeah.
of
So
putting
if
one
we,
somewhere else where we want to add another
right, so
pollinator
if
garden. I'm
we
sure can
like
figure that out.
alternative 2, with exception of parking, if we can just, if we could just put a small basketball court where the pollinator garden is next to a skate park, I think it's perfect if we can get similar parking as alternative 1.
The only issue is the orientation of the ball field was less.
Well, I thought the orientation for the 90-foot diamond is the ideal one, alternative 2.
No, it's
No,
alternative
in the-
one. Alternative one is the Major League Baseball preferred northeast facing.
For the
Um,
pitcher?
Yep. Northeast facing.
Northeast facing is the Major League Baseball preferred that was.
But they're
mentioned
not
at the last meeting.
facing north there,
Pitcher
Northeast
would be
basically.
the pitcher would be facing what, southwest?
Southwest.
southwest, yeah.
The ball field itself faces northeast.
Oh.
Yeah.
But then the sun will be on the pitcher's face in the
Better than
evening.
the batter's face.
I don't know about that.
No, I mean, ideally, we'd have it in nobody's face, but the sun is what it is. It's not
We're
going
building a
anywhere.
dome. We're building a
Yeah.
dome.
Yeah, let's do
All right.
that.
So I need something to go back for her with. I mean,
I could support option. So
let's put it this way, don't ride a fence anymore, all of you. Let's pick one and let's throw out like what we want to provide for feedback. So if Anna, I was saying to you, number 1 or number 2, which one would you pick? Don't give me any other commentary with it.
How about if we pick one choice with one modification? Come on, I gotta be allowed.
Well, no, we'll do modifications. We'll do modifications in a second. But which one of these would you want to go with?
Alternative 1.
And Chris?
only because we'll talk modifications after.
Yes, we will.
I'm kind of being swayed a little more. I'm kind of being swayed a little bit more towards option 2.
Okay. Dave? Now would be the time to tell you you're probably the deciding vote in this.
Oh, Karen, aren't you gonna
Drum roll,
vote?
please.
We'll see, because that could just tie everybody up. Did we
Dave?
lose you, Dave?
Dave?
I think
Dave?
Aaron, you're the deciding vote. So who do you like best?
Sorry
Karen?
about that. I didn't know. I'm working with 2 computer screens here, and
It's okay, Dave.
the controlling one for seeing me and hearing me was turned down like it is now. Option 1.
And
How about you, Karen?
I would have been option 1, but I only want to be option 1. No, I shouldn't say only, because I would have.
Hey, no modifications.
Modifications. So my modifications on option number 1 would be the pickleball and basketball, and this wouldn't even be a modification because I'm fine with them giving us a price on it, but making sure that that section could be phased in so that we can continue to figure out the T-ball program. And if the T-ball program needs to stay there, then we can figure out maybe a spot to even just get pickleball court in. Right, who else has modifications?
I agree with you. That's how I have. One.
Yeah, the only thing I would ask is
And that trail,
us-
right?
yeah, add the trail in, and possibly 2 trails if they could, like Chris said, if they can come around the backside of Powell Field, the outfield of Powell Field. I'm not sure they can though, because I think that's way too wet in there.
It's super steep.
Yeah, but you'd be below the banking. And that's why it pushes you into the wet ones, I think, if you go to the bottom of that banking. But have that loop come around what's presently the dog park, hug along somewhere close to the stone wall or as far into the woods as you can get away with from wetlands in regards to wetlands. And then a quick crossing to tie in with the other trail going to Marshall Pond. Something else that we haven't talked about tonight, and I think all we need to do is tell them that we're all for it, and that which should probably be priced separately is the small park at the pond on Highland Street.
So I think that should all come in, that should all tie in together, Dave, that they will include that pricing as well. The next, she said that the graphic design that they would come up with would, like the final one, she's like, it's gonna be even better than what she's already put forward. So I would expect all of that for the Marshall Pond to be in there, but I will make.
But do you expect us to get a sheet that says, list these separate projects, how much, or these separate areas, how much each one of them costs, and then a total number at the bottom, or?
I don't know, but I'm gonna.
I want it broken out,
Sure.
personally.
Sure.
One other thing we also haven't talked about, just to make sure they don't forget, was the relocation of the sidewalk coming in from 2A. And I think it's the same on both plans, if I'm not mistaken, but we didn't want that. They had it down the middle with parking on one side of the sidewalk and the driveway on the other side of the sidewalk. We wanted it to be moved to the back of the parking lot.
I
You can
guess
see it best in alternative 2.
that's an alternative too. Here.
Yeah, no, the sidewalk coming into the park.
Oh,
That,
coming.
that dark color, that's not a,
Yeah.
I believe that's a sidewalk.
And-
Alternative 1, it crosses more of the parking lot, like it crosses the parking lot a couple of times, whereas option 2, it only crosses once, I think.
Option 1 crosses it once. They both cross once, right? Here.
Twice.
Yeah,
So
but
option 1 crosses at the beginning and then again halfway through the lot.
And what am I missing, Chris?
You don't have the bottom part of
You
option.
have to go to the first drawing on option 1. So keep scrolling up so you get the whole. Right
Oh,
there.
yeah.
There's 1 and 2. That was something I think Pat brought up at the last meeting at the parking
Right,
on
right.
the sidewalk, and option 2 was a little more streamlined, so it didn't cross traffic as.
All right,
as
so you
much.
want me to see if the sidewalk can be adjusted?
Yeah, come off of Mass Ave, more or less on the, what I'm gonna call the back end of the parking lot where the tree line is. I'm looking at the screen, it would be my right.
Right
Yeah,
here?
over there, yep,
So come in and have it go along the back of the parking lot.
right, and then tie into the walking path or whatever that is where it's
Just
crossing,
but where it crosses there. Yeah.
right.
Okay,
That eliminates any crossing of parking and driving areas.
yep, I see it. Anna, what do you got? Anything?
No, I think you guys got it. I think I do like alternative 1, and I
Well,
like that
I do.
phasing.
The beginning.
What?
Should have made you do this from the beginning.
Why you say that?
Save 2 hours.
Yeah, but
No, but I
All right, this is what I have. I have option 1, asking for pricing to be separate for a minimum of the Marshall Pond Park, as well as the basketball pickleball area, so that we know that could be phased in. An additional trail, mind you, I'm pointing at my map and you guys can't see it, so I'm laughing at myself. An additional trail that would come in around the dog pond, the dog park, come down along the wall and cross over to connect into the trail that's already there.
right.
1 or 2 if feasible, yeah. At least 1, but maybe.
And then
seconds.
the sidewalk. And then, yeah.
you know,
ADA, we need to know if the dog park area is gonna be ADA. And I'll ask about the trail.
okay, so 2
I don't think
comments.
we can't put the dog park in if it's not ADA.
Right, so actually, a couple of things there.
Yeah.
All right, let me start with the dog park. They have that the pathway of their presentation, the pathway right there where Karen is, pathway from park to Pond Overlook. average grade is less than 5% ADA accessible. So if you zoom in, the dog park is pretty much in a flat area. Like
I mean,
there's
not
no,
access to that dog park is not flat at all to get
But-
down there. It's
but-
actually a steep grade to get down there.
30
hold
foot
on,
drop.
so hold on. The pathway that's right next to the park, it is less than 5, is average grade of less than 5%, which is ADA accessible slope. So the path
They're
is right
bringing a lot
there.
of fill, so they must be bringing a lot of fill to raise that up maybe or something.
I'm just saying, if they plan that, and they're saying that, so that is within the plan, because the answers can be right there. And Karen, as regards to your first part, how did you phrase that?
I have no idea.
Like, so I think I think when you said something about the basketball court, the pickleball to be able to be phased in. But I think the final construction to be phased in, but if there is any grading that needs to be done, we wanted that done on the same process, because that's how we would ensure that if it is either T-ball first and then this final design, or just this final design, versus just completely ignore that part of the design.
But you're already at grade there, whether you put basketball courts or you leave the pickleball, excuse me, T-ball court, that's already at grade. That's just to clean up and clean the fence up and so on.
Right.
Powell
Well-
Field and that rectangle are already at the grade they would remain.
So is the T-ball, so that's the area where the T-ball field currently is that correct? Is that what you're saying, Dave?
Yep.
Okay. I just want to make sure, like, we don't get, if there's any prep work that needs to be done to making sure, but if that's where the existing T-ball field is, because they didn't write that on alternative 2, they had existing Little League field. I didn't write existing T-ball field.
Well, it's got that little baseball shaped field rather than the rectangular field.
But they
But
don't
that's still
have
at the
it.
same grade. It's in plan 2.
I know, I'm looking, but it doesn't say existing, and that's the part that I want to make sure that
I have it. I have a note. I have a note to
the
ask.
prep work is done for either the T-ball or a basketball pickleball.
Okay, I have a note to ask.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. Karen, the other thing is that no matter what you go with, the biggest phase of this whole project, if it goes with this design, is going to have to be the 90-foot diamond in the softball field all at the same time.
Yep. Oh, and she was clear on that. She was
Yeah.
very clear on that, because I asked her a question on being able to phase stuff in. Like, could we do one field at a time? And her response was, there's so much groundwork that would need to be done, that doing that piece of it should be done all at once. So if we're doing the 90-foot diamond area, we should be doing the softball area. But I mean, somebody's gonna find us millions of dollars here, so this isn't happening tomorrow, so yeah, all right, so I'm going back to her with option 1 with an additional trail, trying to at a minimum price out the ponds and the pickleball basketball court separately. I'm gonna ask whether or not that basketball pickleball courts on the existing level conditions of the T-ball field, so that if we do that last, the T-ball field could be left, or maybe at some point, maybe some people decide they don't want the pickleball basketball and it remains a T-ball field forever. And then the sidewalk coming in from Mass Ave. Those are the items that I have.
We're looking at option 1 because I'm outvoted. Can we ask if that's feasible to put
Now
the
you're making me
pickleball?
feel bad, Chris.
No, it's fine. I did like I don't want to see a basketball court not be there and so forth. So I was looking at option 2 as the, swinging the basketball court over to where that lower pollinator garden was, kind of and moving the pavilion and so forth. And I would like to see if she could give us clarification, because she didn't answer the question in terms of the orientation of that 90-foot diamond off of option 2, like if it could be spun the other way. But I I mean, I can get behind option one. I'm just trying to think of a solution where you have T-ball, pickleball, baseball, or sorry, T-ball, pickleball, basketball. And if the pickleball, you know, if the alternative is pickleball and basketball go up to where the dog park is, you know, is there an alternative place where we can drop a dog park in there somewhere kind of along the lower edge by the skate park, you know, near the parking lot on that end of the road, or you know, what are we doing? I get that Marshall is definitely a spot, and I see the dogs there all the time, and so we're certainly adding ADA compliant areas where folks could walk their dogs and keep them off the ball fields and so forth. Is, you know, if we were to look and find a small dog park somewhere else close to the center of town, if it was, you know, space available somewhere, I don't know.
So like right in here for a dog park where that pollinator garden is?
There, I was thinking down at the bottom of the drawing. So if you scroll down, like, is there below
Here?
the skate park, below the, like, or to the side there where it doesn't abut anybody's property, where that other pollinator garden is, or below the skate park, somewhere in there, if they can. It's close to parking. People can come out with their dog. They're not walking the dog into, you know, fully into the park, or they park and walk the dog through the park and then let the dog run around in the dog park or what have you. That kind. I'm just trying to think of means where we can.
Yep.
But
I will-
what are you
Again,
trying to accomplish?
trying to find solutions to get
trying to leave
everything in there.
Get everything in, leave the T-ball field, still have a dog park and still have pickleball and.
Pickleball, and I get that it's, you know, pickleball and basketball in this drawing are closer to the center of everything.
Right. So
You
you're just
know,
trying to get the,
you know, are we,
plus,
you know, or do pickleball people want to listen to basketball kids on the basketball court at the same time they're playing pickleball? I don't know.
sure,
You know,
make
so
them get along.
do
And I have to get
we were
along.
very separated from folks playing tennis when we were down at the high school court on Sunday.
I think it's wonderful. Make people learn to live with each other. So
I don't
Chris,
know. I'm
what
just
you're trying to
see if we can
do,
get everything in there. I'm trying to make
Right.
everybody happy. I don't know.
oh, that's a wonderful goal. What you're trying to do is to just, you want to get a T-ball field on alternative one. Is that what I hear?
I guess more or less, I guess. Like that's the
That's-
reason I went back to alternative two and kind of was leaning that direction, because I was trying to get a basketball court on alternative two, but I do like the ball, you know, hearing the ball field orientations and so forth. You know,
I don't know. I think
and I'll say, I guess we're only considering the Major League Baseball orientation of a ball field. We haven't talked about what is the softball field preferable orientation. I mean, we're kind of ignoring that, I suppose. Is that facing southeast? Is that a preferable
that's
eye
going to
line
be
for
facing
softball?
northwest, so the sun will be away from everybody's eyes.
It's facing no.
So the pitcher is facing northwest, and the batter is facing.
No, but I'm talking. So you're saying Major League
southeast.
Baseball's preferred line is the ball field facing northeast. So
Right.
we haven't. No one has said what is the softball. What is
Well,
there
that might
isn't
be
is
because
there Major League Softball? I don't know if there's even.
No,
is there
there
Major League
isn't.
Softball? There's not Major League
I
Softball.
was
Right?
gonna say that.
So
That's,
what is the collegiate, so, you know, whatever the highest level of softball orientation, proper field, you know, look like? We haven't talked about that. Like, is that, I don't know.
that's fair. I think the an alternative
I want to just
one,
focus solely on baseball, and we should
Right.
consider, you know, what is the softball orientation? We haven't really heard that, but
I think on alternative one, the way it's facing, the sun will not be on anyone's face. So I think that's a plus in late afternoons, because it will be going to the left, you know, like south.
being the
West.
shortstop's eyes maybe, or something.
Maybe, yeah, I mean, at some point it has to be well, more like second base.
Sometimes I was gonna be in somebody's eyes. At some
Third
point,
base,
you know,
yeah.
I mean, there's nowhere we're gonna
Well,
orientate a field. It's
Yeah,
not
it's
anybody's
third
eyes, I
base,
suppose.
yeah. If there's
Think back to Danny Proctor's comment. You deal with it. It's the sun. You can't move it.
Yeah.
All right, so we could go all night on this, so.
Sure.
All right, let me go back to her. We need to decide on another meeting date though, so that we can, and I wish Pat was here, so that we can, they'll come back and make their final presentation to us. She was hoping somewhere around the week of April 11th, which is for Chris, it's the week before school vacation.
That week, I am out of town the 11th and the 12th.
Okay.
So
Tuesday nights are not good for Chris. He apparently is at soccer.
Tuesdays and Fridays, I'm not coaching soccer.
We could do something on, my preference would be to do something the night of the 13th, because it looks like I'm booked the night of the 14th. What does Wednesday nights look like for everybody?
sounds good with me.
I could make that.
Dave?
Yeah, I think that'll work all right for me.
Okay, we'll do it via Zoom. Is that all right with everyone?
Yes, how long can we keep up with Zoom only?
So I think we're extended until August. I think that's what the state bumped it to August. I think that's the date that I had heard.
It'd be awesome if they make it a permanent.
It would for a variety of reasons, including the fact that if we have to go back in person, I think we need to figure out an alternative venue. Because our current venue is a DPW and we've never done it with a group of 5 in there. It would be tight quarters with all of us.
I've never seen it.
Public, you haven't?
No.
Take you in someday. So, all right, let's go with Parks meeting on April 13th at 7 p.m. I'm going back to Lola with this information, and I will certainly send her the link to this meeting when it does come up. I will cross my fingers that this meeting did not scare our new minute secretary away. Because I don't want
We have a new minute secretary.
We do. They hired somebody yesterday.
Oh, great.
Yeah, and she's
Welcome.
experienced with it. So
On record, you're welcome.
yeah, she's not. Her name's Andrea. She's not on tonight, but she'll pick our meeting up on video. So
And that's the other great thing about Zoom is that the minute taker can so easily have, anyway.
and I agree. So, all right, everybody, can I get does anybody have anything else? Any other public or board comment while we're here?
Go
Everybody
ahead,
does.
everybody, go ahead.
I've just got an announcement. I'll do it at the end.
Go ahead, Dave.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind anybody at home that listens to this before Thursday evening that the Finance Committee will have its public hearing on the budget for the town, capital plan, all of that Thursday evening. So we'll be going over all of the financials for next year's budget, and we'll be voting support or non-support for the warrant articles. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll throw in that I received a phone call from Dan Lincoln. He works with a group of volunteers over at McNally Field. He asked for permission to do some work over there. I sent him over to Rob, so hopefully Rob's working with him. But I'm going to recommend to our commission at some point in the next few months that we invite Mr. Lincoln and some of his fellow volunteers in. They're about to the 40th. That field is named after Brian McNally, and I believe this is the 40th anniversary of his death this year. And they're a group of people that have put in a tremendous amount of work and money and volunteer hours and everything else to support McNally Field. So it would be nice if we could get them in, talk to them, see how everybody can work together to, for them to continue up their hard work, for us to make it as easy as we can on them, and support the kids that use that field. So that's my comment there. Chris,
Hey, Karen,
Dave?
very quickly on McNally Field. If somebody can get me inside the fence at the snack shack there, I will remove the barbecue grill, which has now been tipped over.
Well, do you wanted to shoot Rob Thompson over a message, or you want me to do it?
If you could, I'd appreciate it. If he has a way to get rid of it, fine. Otherwise, all I need to do is get inside the fence.
Okay, I'll have him figure it out. Chris, Rana, did you have anything?
Chris? Do you have anything?
So I was gonna make a comment, and I don't know what will come of it. I was on an athletic related call this afternoon. The superintendent, there was a comment just in general in terms of there not being bathrooms at Marshall for baseball and softball. So I don't know if I'm just an FYI in case we're approached with that information. It was mentioned that the park commission does oversee that area, not by me, but it just was mentioned that the park commission does oversee
What did they
that
do
area.
last year?
I don't know. I'm not sure. So a lot of the discussion today with athletics, it's a long discussion, but it was dealing with, kind of getting into equity and what's available for resources and things of this nature. So it was
What
just,
was the question? I'm sorry, I missed it right at the beginning. What are you talking about? They were concerned about?
there's not, so baseball and softball teams don't have restrooms at Marshall Park.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry, I missed that
Um,
very beginning.
right now. And in the season, I mean, maybe it's resolved because Little League has a porta potty there. But
I feel like I'll have, I think Rob Thompson's still on. I will have.
apparently a parent made a comment to another parent saying that was the issue right now. And so it was just kind of laid out there with the superintendent. And so I
Well,
just
we
figured
we do
I'd
have
make
a
this group aware
policy,
that
right?
it was mentioned today, and just so we're in the, not surprised if we hear something.
Okay.
Right. Well, they can, just as with Little League, they can bring in.
Yeah, they can, it's
you
certainly,
know,
it's not on
yeah.
us to provide one for sure. Yeah, absolutely
Right,
not.
And we have now a
but it's-
policy for it, so
yeah,
they will know
right,
how to
exactly.
go about.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I'm just
not a
making
big
this group
secret.
aware that if we were approached,
That's what it's about.
that's
Yeah.
what it's about. So,
I just want to make a comment that, hats off to this commission, like 6 years, 10 years ago, that wasn't much of such an active Parks Commission. There was a Parks Commission, they got some work done, so it is 10:10, and you guys are all here and with a smile on your faces, so I know I appreciate that, and most of the residents in town do appreciate your work as well, so your work is well done and appreciated.
We're doing something.
Yeah.
in-
But don't know, yeah, we'll get there.
We'll see how far we get. So, all right, can I get a motion to adjourn at 10:11?
motion to
Motion to
adjourn.
adjourn.
All right, we'll take Chris's, and Anna, are you the second?
Second that.
You have to roll call vote that. Chris?
Aye.
Anna?
Aye.
Dave?
No,
Well, it's an aye from myself, so you are completely overruled on that, Dave. Did you have a comment that you didn't want to end?
no, I'm good. I just had to do it. That's all.
I know you did. All right, thanks, everybody. We will see everybody
Seeing if the
on
minute taker's paying attention.
April 13th. Thank you so much.
Good night.
Everybody.